it's hard to hear, but sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. I can't tell you the amount of times I just sitting and listening to somebody just kind of literally bitch me out for like 5 minutes. And then, they're like, okay, I'm sorry. I just had a rough day. You're just like,
I do that to Joe all the time.
Well, how have you transferred that skill into your marriage?
So the first thing I
wrong. I hate you. This is your fault. And you just gotta.
So you listen a lot, right? And then when she goes, and how have you become so good at it? I said, well, baby, because you're number 2.
I'm glad I can teach you something.
And don't ever tell her who's number 1, and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Can't tell you, baby. You just
keep her guessing.
That's it. No, I mean, you just let it. You just let it. I think I'm better at it now. The more that I've been able to do it, the more.
Well, that was nice because we were able to pick the best sellers and things like that. What you found was,
bitch, I can see you falling asleep while I'm telling my story.
I'm not falling asleep. Look, just try it.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Two Homeboys podcast. I am your number 1 host, Joe Walter, together with my number 2 host and second best friend, Gabriel Cohen from Classy Art, and our special guest today, Pete Shau from the RTO Show.
Welcome, Pete.
The RTO industry. Are you, Pete, where else do you work besides the RTO Show founder, CEO, president, owner?
I'm actually a regional manager at Buddy's Home Furnishings for the Buddy Mac holding part of it. The franchise break, about 84 stores throughout the United States, about 8 states. And I am the only one in Florida. So I control the Tampa Bay region, and everybody else is in Texas and Oklahoma, Mississippi, Missouri. I think there's some in Mississippi. I don't know. They're everywhere. Yeah. But the only one in Florida. And so I've been doing this just shy of 20 years. So January will be 20 years for me in the RTO business.
Very cool.
What did you do before the rent-to-own business?
Bro, I said I've been here 20 years. I don't know if I've been here like that.
I mean, you could say I was still in middle school.
He was swimming through a testicle.
So I started literally in the year 2000, in January 2000, and I had a lot of going on, and I just wanted to try it out. I was actually it was in college, and somebody stopped by one day and was like, "Hey, Pete, I like what you're doing, and I think you should stop by and try it out." And I was like, I don't even know what rent to own is, bro. Like, I don't know what it is. I just take your money every day, you do a deposit. And I understand that, but I don't know anything. He's like, listen, why don't you stop by? Give me a chance to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you at work. And I went down and he made a pitch. And you know what? It came down to like money. They weren't paying me anything at the bank because it was part-time. I was in college. So they were like, yeah, you're here like 5 whole hours a week. Like, we're just going to pay you minimum wage. And he was paying me almost like $8 an hour more to start. And so I was like, all right, you know what? I don't know what you do, but I'll give it a try.
Oh, yeah. Where do I sign?
Yeah. And so, I got into it, and it was hard freaking work, but it kind of paid off. And so on and off. So I started in 2000, of course, it's 2024, early 2000. So around 2025, I took like a 5-year hiatus. So I took a couple of breaks to try out opening up my own business and doing a couple of different things. And, if you're in rent to own, and you guys might not know it the way I know it, but if you're in rent to own, you always come back to rent to own. So I finally made a comeback, and I decided, you know what, I want to try this out, like do this. Like, I'm going to do this. And then when I decided to do it, all of a sudden my career just started taking off. And I was like, you know what, maybe I should have just tried this earlier.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to put some work into it. And once I did, it just, dividends got paid, and it was great.
And where did you start? What company did you start with?
Man, you're going to make me think back. So back when I first started, there was a company called Renter's Choice. Renter's Choice was a company that was out there, owned by Ernie Talley, before Rent-A-Center was what it was. So Rent-A-Center was owned by Thorne Industries, and it was still the biggest at that time. Renter's Choice was like the 3rd biggest, I think, something like that. And they bought the big guys, but they kept the name because, of course, the brand recognition was there. So they bought them, kept the name, and then that's when I switched over to Rent-A-Center.
Okay.
And
And
wait,
how long were you with Rent-A-Center?
So I was there about 7 years.
Okay.
I had been a hurricane came through the town and made me change what I was doing. So I ended up going to the competition
Mm.
because it blew our house down, literally. Not our house, but the store was pretty bad. And I ended up going to Rent King for a couple years. And then I made a transition into Tampa, worked for Buddies for a couple years, went back to Rent King for 5 years. And then now I'm back at Buddies because they say they needed somebody. There was a lot going on, and here we are.
Gotcha.
You know,
and is Color Time somehow related to the rent-to-own business, or were they a predecessor? Because I remember there being a store called Color Time, and
They're
I
still
thought
they're still around.
They're still
oh,
around.
they
still around.
are.
Yeah.
Are they rent-to-own, or are they something else?
They
Yeah.
are, as far as I know. They were a lot bigger than what they were. They ended up being franchised out and changed to some different companies, and now they're everybody who has a Color Time, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, they really own the business themselves. I don't think there's a corporate Color Time anymore. I think they're all in their own deal, and I hate to say it, slowly but surely, I think they're going away. I think they're rebranding or whatever the case is. I wouldn't say go away, but I think they're changing, they're rebranding to their own thing, and pretty soon you won't see any more Color Times.
Yeah.
And can somebody become a Buddies now, or for new Buddies stores, they're only going to be corporate stores?
No, actually, there's not going to be any more corporate stores, as far as I know. I think everything's all franchised now.
Yeah. I mean, you see the booth at the RTO World Show, right? That's what they're doing there, is selling franchisees.
So Mitchell Lee, the one, he actually was on the show. He came by and stopped by, and he educated me on a whole lot of things when it comes to franchising that I didn't know. But yes, so there's a lot of options, and a lot of things. There's a lot of vetting. Of course, you go in and they want to know your information and what you have to offer, and whether you're a part of rent to own or not, because you don't have to know rent to own to be able to do it. But it does take a lot of time. It's not one of those franchises where you can kind of set and forget. It's not like a McDonald's kind of thing. But they work through with you and your situations and get you open. So yeah, if you want to open one, they're definitely available, but it's all franchise out from here. I don't think any corporate stores will be opening. And if they do, I mean, it's not going to be like they're opening 10. If they do, I'm sure it'll be a small market or whatever.
Well, I would imagine it would be more of an acquisition type of situation.
Yeah.
So it may be 10, 20, whatever, if they acquire.
If they acquire,
some group of premiers or whatever,
That's the only way I could see it. I mean, that's why I don't see it happening on its own. But if they acquire something, definitely.
Do you find the Buddy Mac? Okay, so we're talking about Buddy Newco specifically, but you're on the Buddy Mac side of things, which is a subset, right?
Its own franchise group.
Yeah. So do you have? Do they have a growth strategy in plan, or they're happy with 84, or what do you see that looking like?
So there's only so much I can say, but I can say, as far as I know, they are definitely interested in growth.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's 2024 right now, man. Everybody's feeling it in the pocketbooks, So
Yeah.
I think the strategy is to make sure that everything works, everything is solid. And when you have a year where inflation is going through the roof and everybody's paying more on just about everything there is to live, sometimes I think it's more financially sound to make sure that you're batting down the hatches and you're making sure everything works and the processes are good. And then when a good cycle comes back around, usually not in a presidential election year, because everybody's wondering where the hell we're going to end up in the next 6-7 months. Taxes going up, are they going down? If somebody in, or is somebody out? Are they changing, policies? Are they keeping the same policies? Once that kind of calms down and everybody gets a breath of fresh air, I think that's when it'll be more implemented down the line. Hey, where we're going to go, where we're going to be,
Yeah.
No matter what side of the coin you're on, it's just about money. It's about the money, man.
And
I have an important question. What are you drinking?
That is Jack and Coke.
Jack, we don't talk brands here.
we do. We decided we were holding out.
I'm drinking Aaron and Coke, or is it Aaron? I don't even know. We just throwing it all out.
We have a running joke because Joe and I used to hide the label because we're like, they're not paying us. We don't want our 12 followers to know.
We're not endorsing that. We're not.
Yeah.
This brand, but I drink it all the time.
And then we had our friend Patrick, who founded and owns AMP, which is the software platform for. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with AMP, and he kept.
I wanted to ask you guys a question.
Sure.
Seriously.
Yeah.
What made you guys go into furniture podcasting? because at first, and I'm just bringing it up because I did a little homework.
It's the liquor.
It seemed like at first it was just going to be very wide open. Furniture was a part of it, and then it kind of got more dialed into furniture, and then you got a couple guests. So is it furniture primarily?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all things furniture with the side of bullshit, right? You want to take the how we got into it, Joe?
Yeah. So we know each other from the furniture industry. So I was a retailer in Tampa for 10 years, and Gabe a supplier to one of our vendors. So we became friends and kind of both grew up in the furniture industry. He started working in the family business at 16, right? Or maybe before.
Yeah, 16.
And I started working in the furniture industry right out of college, but my dad was in it. My grandfather was in it. So we were always around the furniture business.
Yeah.
So we would hang out a lot at markets, and we would sit around and bullshit and have drinks at one of Gabe's bars.
Some of us were working.
Well, I would sit around and bullshit. I was a buyer. So
how many of these do you remember having? I just want to make sure that you're remembering it the same way.
Yeah.
The story the same way.
Yeah, it's not. We have different perspectives for sure.
Well,
but no, like
like the other story I saw like a little bit ago didn't say the same thing. I'm just kidding.
Well,
it
so
changes every week. Whatever's more interesting today.
Right.
Gonna sell podcasts, views, right?
We were on a nuclear submarine.
We intercepted alien communication, and they told us we should start a podcast.
So all right, so then chicken or the egg? Who mentioned podcast first? Who was the one that said?
I don't know.
Gabe did.
Oh, you know why? No, you know who said that first? Alex. So let me go back.
Okay.
So all of our showrooms have bars, right? And Joe spends a good amount of time there, and we're best friends. Well, number 2 best friend. And so we have really engaging conversations, just, us. And a lot of times there's reps there or customers or whatever, and we get into very intense conversations that are, thought-provoking and interesting. And we've been told a lot, like, people would want to hear these conversations. And my last videographer for Classy Art quit. He got some big contract doing movies, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I had met Alex prior to him quitting. And I really liked his work. And I said, we need to work together, but I can't let go of this other guy. We've already got wheels in motion, blah, blah, blah. And then he quits. And so Alex comes on and starts doing our Classy Art videos. And he's like, I also do podcasts. And so, the rest is history. We were like, you want to do something? Let's do something. We partnered with Tango and just made it happen.
Yeah. But you were definitely, in my world, you were the one that brought it up to me once you had talked to Alex about it. Not that that's very interesting now that I blurted it out. Sorry for derailing the conversation.
Because I always wonder when you get into these things, sometimes you have to take a look back and go, why the heck did all this start? Like, where was the catalyst that set this off?
And now I want to ask you that same thing.
I was going to ask the same thing.
You are coming up on your 2nd anniversary of your first episode.
Yes.
And so what inspired, and I have also seen some clever, interesting, funny commercials, or, whether they're commercials or they're kind of officially just videos for social media, but you've got quite a collection of interesting skits and bits that you've done on video.
Well, so the first part, it's about 2 years right now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go over my my contract with some of my sponsors because it's about that time. And it started around this time last year that we were looking at each other going, what are we going to do? So it actually initially started with I didn't think there was enough out there as far as rent-to-own was concerned. Like, I didn't think there was enough knowledge, right? Everybody thought that we were the big bad boogeyman. And, I think I had seen one on your episodes that, you have furniture, like I wouldn't go back there and get it. Right. Well, we have a different concept. Like we have to go get it. Right. Because we have an investment in there. We have to go get it. Right. So you have an investment there that you're trying to protect. You're also trying to, pay the bottom line. Right. So there's a lot of things that we have to do, and we do train and we do go get it. And it's life. It's what happens. But so we were talking about that. And so at the time, the guy that's in most of my videos, we were talking about it. And we're like, I was like, Danny, we really got to find a way to announce that we are just not the boogeyman. You know what I mean? Like we're not those kind of people. And so we talked about it more, and it was like, well, I don't know if we can start out that aspect. Why don't we try training first? Why don't we just start talking about the business so that people can learn? You know what I mean? And so we were like, well, how the heck do we get it out there? Because I don't want to be on like video. I don't know what the heck and look at, now. But I don't want to be on video. And so I don't know who mentioned it first, but podcast came up. I was like, that would be a great way for us to just start talking about different things, the agreement and how it works. And, when you come into a store, how do you merchandise it? How do you approach the customers that we normally deal with, and all this stuff? And we started talking about, so we were like, all right, well, we're not going to do this unless we can get a napkin full. So at the end of a napkin and a half, we were just like, okay, I think that we can probably do something every single week or something, we just try it out. We had no idea what the hell we were doing. And so I was Googling how to have a podcast, and we kind of like just started throwing it together. So the first 5 podcasts are just, wow, they're hard to listen to. I listened to some of them.
Same with our first 10.
We're still in that process.
I was going to say, aren't we on number 10? Isn't this number 10?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks for being a part of our trials.
Thanks for being part of the debauchery.
Yeah.
So we did it, and we started going on, and slowly but surely, as people started listening, there were upper management people. There were owners. There were people in like places like APRO and Trib and different things. We caught a couple ears, not many. And they were like, you should try this, or you should talk about that. And before you knew it, we were at the end of season 2. And we're like, holy cow, like how the hell did we get here? And so my partner was like, yeah, it was a crazy ride, but man, I didn't expect it to be so intense, right? There's a lot of planning and doing, and we're talking to people, and we're trying to come up with sessions, and what do we talk about next? And so he was like, listen, man, I'm getting out of the rent to own thing. And so it's time for me to go. And I was like,
no.
Yeah. So he left at the end of season 2. So I did some soul searching, and I said, man, I've been doing this too long, and I did not invest this to get out of it. I loved where it was going. And so the idea was start bringing on people that actually knew what the heck they were talking about, and just let them talk, man. Let them share their experiences instead of me trying to tell everybody what to do. You know what? Why don't I just let them tell what they would always do? The things that they've learned and the experiences, and maybe describe rent-to-own in a way that I couldn't do it. And so I said, you know what? I don't know anybody better to do it than Mike Tissett. And he agreed, and I was like shocked. I was like, oh my God, like this is the way to go. So I always have to give a shout out to Mike Tissett. He did a great job on the 3rd season, first episode. He was my first interviewee, so to speak, like real interviewee. And it just went from there. I mean, Mike, if you've seen Mike, he's the guy that put on there first. I lucked out with the Coca-Cola brand right out of the bottle. Right. So I put him out there first, and it was great. People started listening, and then it kind of grew legs of its own.
So prior to that, you didn't have guests on. It was just y'all two.
It was just us two. So I would just like you guys were, in the initial, like, hey, we come up with a subject. We'd kind of, spitball some stuff. I throw an outline, he throw an outline, and we'd like to approach it like, I'm going to see it from this side of the fence. I want you to see it from that side of the fence. Whether it's Green Bay and Miami, right? Yeah, I just want you to look at it from this side. I'm going to look at it from this side and say what's good about this or what's good about that. And we had a great dichotomy on some of the subjects. Some of the subjects we were like that in life too. If you ever look at the videos, like there's always one nut job, and then there's him. So I'm not going to mention who the other nut by is. I mean, like, so we were always like that. And it was a good chemistry. Once it stopped, I had to really kind of rethink of how I was going to make this. So season 3 really kicked off the whole, let's invite other people in and make it worthwhile. And that's when it really took off.
And initially and today, who is the audience? Like, is it the consumer, or is it the employees in the stores? Is it the industry? Like, who is the target?
Industry, the rent-to-own industry. It took me a while to figure that one out too, right? So as we were driving along, we were like, I have no idea where we're going, and I don't even know what the map says. And then as we dialed it in, because at first it was the idea that maybe we should tell people about rent to own, and that way we can get them to understand it better. As we started going along, it was like, you know what? I don't know anybody who's going to listen to that. So we started dialing it more into the employees and the people in the industry. And now it's 100% industry based.
So like all facets, do you find vendors following, or is it all
Vendors,
either rent to own or the employees, or all of the above?
all the above. That's what we're trying to incorporate, the entire industry, so we do vendor spotlights. I'm saying there's me and one other person, but I do vendor spotlights where it's a vendor and they come in and they can describe what they do. Kind of like what you did with Patrick, right? So this is what you do. This is what you do well. This is why I should try it out and maybe work with this particular person, or an industry special. In other words, hey, I have a certain way of doing this, and this is great. And this is why the RTO industry should give it a shout. So we did the RTO collections that, this collection superpower with Richard Formo, who was doing, and if you remember, it was last year, April, that he was doing a collections automated system. And so he broke that on the show. It was kind of like, hey, this is the new collections thing that we're going to do. And I want to put it on your show because everybody that listens to the show is really just in the industry. So it's definitely industry based in the sense that, I want everybody to listen from the driver all the way to the top. And we try to change the subject matter around so that it's not just on the vendor. It's not just on operations. Somebody who wants to know how to run a Black Friday can listen, and somebody who wants to run a better company can listen. We've done subjects on, single store franchisees, single store non-franchisees, people that have opened it by themselves, people that have opened with others, people who opened with 10 stores, like right off the bat. And it's great to hear all their different stories because like every one of us, it's just a unique situation. They walk in and you're like, wow, you did that. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Is it possible for somebody to just open a rent-to-own store by themselves, one store, little experience? Or is that not like you can open a furniture store by yourself. You don't need to be part of a group, you can figure it out. But rent to own, coming from a furniture guy, a sales guy, sounds so complicated. Like keeping track of everything and, collecting the money and then dealing with getting the stuff if you don't get the money. And it seems like it would be
all right.
hard.
Let him answer the question.
Well,
this is the longest question I ever heard.
Well, I mean,
wait, I'm not done. That was just part one. So,
no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it because the truth of the answer is you probably know a lot more about the business than you think you do, because at the end of the day, it's still business, right? You got to bring in so many dollars. You got to cash flow. The problem is that the amount of inventory that you would bring in and the amount of inventory that I would bring in is probably the same, except you would see most of your inventory all the time, or it's just gone. Whereas in a rent-to-own store, even though it might have a small footprint, if I've got 400 or 500 customers and they all have something out in their home, that's still my inventory until it gets paid off.
So it's capital heavy.
Yes,
your inventory is out there working for you. So a good line of credit would be critical. But so when you were asking the question, Joe, my brain went to the branding side of it, right? Like, how many locations does it take to make your marketing dollars effective? And so if you're a small independent, especially in a rent to own, because you got to trust that company, right? Because you're essentially taking a loan from a buddy's. Right.
It really depends because so to answer the question, I guess the first part of it is, could you do it? Yes. Would I recommend that you do it not doing franchise without having 100% knowledge of what you're getting into? That answer would be no. So if you don't have a lot of knowledge, maybe you have knowledge of entrepreneurship and you know how to open a business, but rent-to-own's different in a lot of different ways. It's not rocket science, but it's different in different ways. I would say don't go into an independent by yourself, because as a franchisee, you get to go into their buying groups, right? They've already selected the people to buy from. They already have the products that they know pretty much sell, right? You don't just go in there and start buying willy-nilly and then you put stuff on your floor and nobody rents it. And you're like, I don't even know what happened, right? So they have like this tried and true system. Of course, at the end of your life cycle, you have to say, is it worth 6% every single month? You have to figure that out. Now, as an independent, like I would go more towards an independent bit. It's still a little bit harder, but in the end of 5 years, I'm not paying that royalty every day. I would be just doing it myself. Now, when you talk about marketing, absolutely, it definitely helps to have more stores to do the marketing. But here's the thing. As you're smaller and you have different types of marketing that you can do. If I was an independent and I was doing something as a marketing, I would be doing social media all day. And it's something that if you ever notice, like the big guys, they stay away from, right? Because you got to have that one guy who does one thing and he gets to look at, oh, they've got 100 stores. Yeah, I'm getting paid, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. Listen, we all got to be careful with what we do because that's the way the world works, right? If we make a mistake, we're going to pay for it. But if you're a little mom and pop and you kind of know what you're doing, you go heavy on social media. You differ yourself from like the big guys, like the Rent-A-Centers and the Aarons and the Buddies. You can be your own guy, and you can do your own thing. Now, as you get bigger, then you have to worry about it. And then you got to wonder, okay, is flyering the way to go? Is getting on the radio the way to go? Instead of doing free social media, do I do paid YouTube ads? Do I do something on, let's say, Spotify or Pandora, where I'm going to a select group of people? But as an independent, especially as a small independent, you get to make videos like I made and do some crazy stuff, right. and you don't have the regulation that you do. So, we lucked out. We had somebody who was local in Tampa Bay area, right? And so S2 Creative came in and they were, Amberley at the time was working with us and they were like, hey, we want to do something different. So we get S2 Creative and we sit down and we start spitballing the craziest ideas that you can think of on a commercial, which was absolutely fun because, again, we're not strapped down to all the rules and regulations, right? So we come with these crazy things. And the thing about S2 Creative too is that they were small enough to be able to kind of pick up what we were putting down and kind of be able to tailor that. So they ended up making all of those videos that we had on, well, most of the videos, I should say, like most of the main videos, because now they understand how Rent-A works and they know that what we're trying to do with our customer base and what we should say versus what we shouldn't say. And it just went crazy. It just went crazy. And it was so much fun. So to get back to it, if I was doing it by myself, could you do it? Yes. If you didn't have enough knowledge, I would definitely say go the way of franchise because you're going to need that guidance. That guidance is like all day, every day.
Yeah. And in all of these years, had you ever thought about going to a furniture store or a mattress store instead of rent to own and trying just the straight selling as opposed to the contracts?
I have thought about it a lot, actually, because I love sales, right? I love sales. The thing is that I cut my teeth on rent to own. So I don't know. I know how to run it, right? Fundamentally, you get furniture, you sell it, you try to make the right margins on it. You do the best. There's a lot I can learn from that. So if somebody said, Pete, I'm going to, I would entrust you to either open a rent to own or a furniture store. I'd be like rent to own all day because a furniture store, I don't know it.
More right? Comfortable.
Right. So I know where the margins need to be. I know where the cash flow starts. I know a little bit because rent to own, you make a lot of your money on the back end. In furniture sales, and I would gather, and you guys tell me differently, you're making your money on the sale, not necessarily later on. So when in rent to own, when you get a product, right, there's a lot of investment that goes into that because the delivery is included. The service is included. There's no credit checks. You're not buying it all in one shot. So I have to have somebody there that's going to take your money, and I have to have a point of sale that will continuously know if you're on time with your payments or not on time, or how much is still owed left on that product. So it makes you more money, but over time. Where furniture, I would have to figure out, okay, how many sales do I need at what margin to make what I would need to cash flow this month?
Well, there's some overlap too, because, I think the first company that kind of mainstreamed it was Why Not Lease. And so there was that option for a furniture retailer to essentially sell that credit, that contract to that vendor. Now you have SEMA and Progressive and et cetera, where those retailers are able to do essentially what the rent to own is doing in a much larger footprint. And so my question is
well,
how is that impacting the rent to own business?
And before you answer that, as a retailer, you still get your money right away.
Right. So it's like a factor for us. We're selling the receivable.
Yeah. So in an independent world, you do have to, like, you account for, you get the money today, you get the sofa, I get the money, transaction's over. You know, as opposed to like looking forward to that future income stream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, there is a small aspect of it where we want to do a certain amount of cash sales per month, right? If we call it free money, it's not free in a sense. It's, in other words, we're getting the paid for the transaction up front, and then you're not dealing with it after the delivery. So you always want to do that because it always helps. You don't have to have anybody answering the phones. You don't have to have a secondary delivery. If they have any warranty issues, they can call they can call whoever it is, Ashley or Progressive or whoever is that has it, unless they decide to buy an extended warranty through somebody like Benefit Marketing Solutions. But so to get back to your question, Gabriel, it's market share. I mean, can I say that it was better without them? Absolutely. We go back 10 years and I'll be like, that's a different rent to own. Like, if you want to get them off the block, I'm good. Get them gone. But I can also say that every time I drive down the street and I see McDonald's, within a block or two, I'm going to see Wendy's. And within a block or two of that, I'm going to see a Burger King, right? So is it better without them? Yes. Do they kill you? No. I've just got to prove why it's better to come to me over them. And the one thing about rent to own is it's relationship business. So not that I'm knocking anything else, because I think furniture business is also a hard business, but it's a relationship business in the sense that no matter what you do, at some point, you're going to make reoccurring payments. We are going to have more conversations, right? So if you're coming in, whether it's be weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, I'm going to talk to you some point in time. I'm going to call you and tell you, hey, we got this big sale going on.
And they're going to talk to the same person? Like they're coming in to make a payment? Yeah.
I mean, you would theoretically like them to talk to the same person.
Right, but it's not realistic.
No. In today's marketplace.
When you say relationship business, you mean relationship with buddies.
With the brand. Absolutely.
With the brand. Okay.
Now, when you're always going to start with the brand, but your relationships with the customers get better as you get more dialed in. So you have a pretty good business if they have a good relationship with buddies. You have a better relationship with the GM, you're going to have more dedicated customers. If you can get it down to where you have tenureship into your account managers, your drivers, and people can come back 3 years later and go, that's the same guy, you've made it. So whoever delivered me this piano, right? If it was the same person 3 years later, hey, it'll be all good, right? It's all good. So
the piano.
Love the piano, man. It looks good. Yeah. I don't ever play it.
It does look good. It looks
too hard. It's too hard to play. I'm trying to. I can't do it.
Just invite friends that play.
There you go. There you go. So, what made you? You say that you started early on, and then Joe, you were kind of like in the family business. So you guys have been doing this a long time. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 27 years.
28 for me. God. So 28 in the business, at the helm for 19.
So Joe was saying that you have other interests, other things you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you do?
So
you said something about drinks too.
Yeah. So I am currently promoting Jefferson.
Okay.
The reserve, very old. So we are celebrating Joe's upcoming marriage, and some of the boys and I are going to do the bourbon trail. So Joe and I were bullshitting about, we got to talk about sponsors while we're there.
So Joe, you're getting married?
Yeah. Friday, December 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Getting married.
Does she know you do a podcast? Does she know you do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You better tell her now, because my wife was like, "You're gonna do what?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do a podcast." She's like, "I will kill you. I will stab you." And I was like, "Baby, just don't stab me by the mic, okay?" Just.
I mean, that feels like an overreaction.
Yeah.
Yes. But
she must be Latina.
Oh, my wife is Cuban and Italian, so she's very supportive, and I will say that she's very supportive. But there are times when she's like, "Okay, I've been supportive enough today, and I'm not going to do it anymore today." but she has really helped me along. And I guess the reason I say that is because if you have a partner and they're not in on it, this can, as it grows, it can take some time, because you want to get it right. You want to be able to talk to people. You want to have the right subject matter, and you want to do your homework. And before you know it, it's another job on top of your job.
Right.
That's something that I never anticipated that I'd be doing. I was like, oh, it's just a podcast. Like, would you just pull up a mic and talk? Yeah. I have 2 full-time jobs now.
Yeah.
Seriously. So,
well, I think Bree is super supportive of anything Joe does. And
that's awesome.
She's very, very cool. She's one of my
She's
favorite
in
people.
the industry also.
She is.
Oh, you lucked out.
Mm-hmm.
What
He
about
did
you?
luck out.
What about you, Gabriel? What's on the docket for you?
Oh, so let's go back to the first question. We're gonna
bypass that all.
Jump back to that first question. So, my brother Jonathan is my business partner in all of our ventures, and so we do a lot of things. Of course, Classy Art's kind of our bread and butter, right? We spend probably 85% of our time on it, but we own a boutique guerrilla marketing firm, and then we have several real estate investment firms where we buy and hold residential real estate. We have a little bit of commercial, but we're more in the residential business. Then we do some crypto mining, some private equity investment, a bunch of shit. Just, hustlers, I guess.
And then he's like, let's just do a podcast. Let's just add that.
Because look, this is fun. This doesn't feel like work, right?
Right.
I mean, I know what you're saying.
And we don't prepare, so it's not as much work as you're doing.
We don't. Alex does the shooting, he does the editing, does the thing, and then Tango's team does the uploads and the thing. And, we let this be a true hobby where we just get together and enjoy each other's company and friends that we have on. So I don't want it to ever feel like work, because then we'll just stop. But I know what you mean. Like, it can feel like work. But we're not at a point where we want to get that involved, where we're like preparing and doing, so.
I felt like that at one time. I cherish that. I felt like that at one time. You know what? I say 2 jobs because there is work that's put into it, but I love being on the podcast.
Yeah.
I love podcasting. It has taken me by storm. Like, at first it was just like, okay, we'll talk about whatever kind of sticks, right? No big deal. And now that I'm doing it, it's like, I want to put out good content because I feel like I get as much out of it as the people that I'm talking to.
But see, you're doing it because you enjoy it.
Oh, I absolutely love it.
And so it shouldn't feel like a job. It should feel like a hobby.
Well, I get to drink and talk to you guys. I guess it's not that bad, right? I mean, it could be worse, right?
It sounds like the RTO show needs to incorporate some bourbon.
I would love to. So when it comes to certain things, so we had no direction in the sense that it could have gone anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the end of the second season, when my partner was deciding that he was about to step out, actually, that's when April came in. So it was at the end of the first year, and April came in and we sat down, and it was a great conversation, and it was definitely the best direction for me to go in. But there was a small amount of rules and regulations that came with that.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, besides Trib, April was the biggest name on the block, and they were like, we got to make sure that things are okay. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
How can I say no? You know what I mean? It was like, this is a great opportunity to start working with some of the best people in the industry. So okay, I can watch what I say and do a little bit.
Yeah. I get that for sure.
Yeah. But I don't regret it one bit. Like I would probably be doing some crazy stuff too. So I was like, you know what? Kind of like my wife, just reel me in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me where the bumpers are, and I'll stay within my lane. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. I enjoy it.
Did you have sponsors right from the beginning, or that introduction of A-Pro was the beginning of you being sponsored?
Heck no, nobody. Everybody was looking at us and like, look at these guys do this by themselves. It's awesome. We'll just listen. And then, so when when Jill was there, I don't even think there was a thought process in that. She was just good to be the way it was. When Charles came in, he came in with this idea that not that he wanted to reinvent April, but he wanted it to be new. He wanted something to knew to happen with it. And so he was like, okay, there's a dedicated RTO podcast that nobody really has caught on to yet. Let me catch on to it in the beginning. And so we had a conversation, we went back and forth a little bit. And once we signed on some agreement, it was like, okay, now let's push it. And as it started going, it started picking up a lot of steam. So he caught it way early. And so luckily, and I will say this, once I had A-Pro on there, it gave me a sense of pride to be able to go to somebody else and go, hey, A-Pro's got on my back over here. You know what I'm saying? Anybody. And so it paid off. Yeah. Yeah. And it paid off. And of course, the same thing. It was like, well, what about this or what about that? And it's like, no, there's rules and regulations. It's not, I mean, they don't have like artistic review or anything like that, but it was like, you always want to keep rent to own in a good light. Make sure that you keep it educational. You don't want to go off to left field and F this and screw you. And, I picked up your stuff just because, we really want to keep it in a good light. And I was so for that because I wanted to do that anyways. And once that started, it was just like, it was butter, baby. It was butter. It was butter. It was good. It gave everybody like that breath of fresh air. Like, I don't mind being a sponsor now because I know that there's somebody larger behind this. Mm-hmm. And so now, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, the show probably wouldn't even be anywhere near where it is if it wasn't for the sponsors that I have. I mean, I don't know how much you guys saw, if you saw the booths or you saw the live show, but I mean, none of that would be possible without the sponsors.
Right.
And they really helped out. Gerard let us use his booth to have live podcast interviews right there by the front door. I mean, I couldn't have paid for that to be better. And then April allowing us to do that live podcast show with Charles, and the entire backdrop setup was provided by Vox. I mean, it was amazing. This year was amazing for me. Like, I know I saw, I think it was episode, oh God, I remember, I think it was episode 2. You guys were talking about the difference between Trib and A-Pro, and one's a buying group and one's kind of like the legal watchdogs. And that's like literally how it works. And, this year I was able to go to like LegCon, and we went to DC, and we saw some amazing things. I saw some legislative people that, not on camera, not CNN, like in your face. And was like, they're old. And then, we had to remind them, hey, this is what rent to own does. And I can actually say that if anything that I've done for this industry, I've actually gone to Capitol Hill and fought on 2 different sides. I fought the state and went out FRDA and went to LegCon to DC to try to push what we do and keep it in the runnings. So it was great. So I don't think it would have been as good as it was without the sponsors, and A-Pro was definitely like on the forefront of that. So, I mean, I really thank God for that, lucked out as I drank my drink when I say that, but
yeah.
And
that's cool.
They brought you to Washington.
No, not that part. No, okay. that part was all me. So there's the good thing about working in the industry is that some of it is work related. So there's a payback in the sense that, yes, I'm working my job, and when I have free time, I get to pitch the show, right? So some people, if I wasn't working in the industry, I would have to pay for the whole thing. But working for RTO dealers, hey, we have the show going on. I need you to be at the show. So some of it I have to work. I'm like literally working my full-time job. And then when they're like, you guys can go do whatever. Well, some people are running from the bar. Pete's running for a microphone and somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Well, and I mean the Washington trip. Like, who sponsors you going to Washington? Do you have to pay for that?
Do you pay those expenses?
Or
that particular one was all me.
Yeah.
That was a show. That particular one was all show, because there, like A-Pro was different. I had to work at that show. So I got to go there because I was working at Buddies, and there were things that I needed to do for Buddies. There was a checklist that I had to do, right? There's things that I got to do. I've got to go to shows, or I've got to go to sessions. I've got to learn things. There's buying products. There's part of that. For LegCon, it's kind of like, if you're here, it's because you want to talk to somebody. And I wanted everybody to know that the show was there on its own 2 feet. And I think that adds validity to the fact that when somebody says, well, you were here because somebody brought you here. No. That I didn't want. I'm here because I came to fight for the industry myself as a podcaster and as somebody who works in the industry. So there was a choice in that, Joe, and I decided to make that choice sponsored by the RTO show.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's a solid move because it does add serious legitimacy to the show,
right.
as I'm here at this event. Because I would imagine most store owners, most GMs, most people in the business do not go to that.
They don't.
They become a member of A-Pro and they rely on A-Pro to send a couple of folks to lobby on their behalf. But very few people have probably ever been to that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, is that fair?
Well, when you take the amount of people that work in the industry and you take the amount of people that have gone to LegCon, I don't think you can scratch 1%. I don't think you can scratch 1/4%, right? Because the amount of people that actually do that are going to be the people who have something to really lose by it. And when I say that is, for every store, you have 2 drivers, right? So if there's 10,000 rent-to-own stores, you've got 20,000 drivers. There ain't 20,000 drivers over there doing that, right? Just the same thing as like McDonald's. For every McDonald's you have at least 5 associates, right? So you gotta think not everybody's that involved into it. It's a job for them. It's not a career. When I decided that was going to be a career move, absolutely. So the guys that you're seeing there, the guys and gals, the people that you're going to see there are really invested in it. They are owners, operators, people from Trib, A-Pro. They want to know that the industry is going strong 10 years from now. They're not investing for tomorrow. They're investing for the people that are going to be working for them 10, 15 years from now. And so it not only was great to be able to say that I've done that on a national level, it was nice to bump some elbows with some people that have been doing this for as long as I could remember. Icons and in the business that can actually kind of direct me and steer me and go, Pete, I've seen this a million times. Let me tell you the truth about this and about that and how this works and what's going on. And, because I got questions too, man. I got questions like, if I was an independent person, do I go with a franchise or not? And they would give me some good feedback and kind of really just steer me the right way. So it was great all the way around. If you guys can ever make it, I would encourage you to go.
Well, in rent to own business. So business is hard enough. Employees, all of the thing, everything about doing business is hard enough. But then in your industry, you're fighting all the time for the right to do that business. Like,
oh yeah,
Gabriel doesn't really have to fight for the right to sell his art. I don't
Right.
have to fight for advertising very much, but rent to own is constantly fighting the government about, the things that keep that business alive. And it's really important to consumers. Consumers need it. And the people that are making the rules are out of touch with what the consumers need and why they need rent to own stores so much.
Well, advocating for rent to own was huge because in advocating, you get to learn even more about what you don't know, right? So there are things that you don't know that put you there. Then you learn about other reasons that other people are there. And you're like, I didn't even know that. So as I was there advocating in DC and we're going on, the first thing was great because A-Pro did this coverage on the new guys on the block. And I don't know if you saw that in the magazine, but I was part of that group and Amber Lee Maya and a few other people because we had never been there. And so they followed us around and there was a lot of video and pictures of us being taken. And so it was great in that aspect. Towards the middle, probably 50, 60% way in, I hear about this law in New York. I didn't know there was anything going on. I had no idea. I've been doing this for a long time. I haven't heard this. I'm on the podcast for crying out loud. Yeah. So there were 2 bills that introduced. The buy now, pay later is affected by it, and the rent to own industry would be affected by it. And it was introduced late session in the session that just closed. And it was about kind of regulating what an already regulated industry, and it would actually throw rent to own into a credit situation, and they would have to change the way they do business in the state of New York, essentially killing rent to own. Now, A-Pro being what it is, they already had, started on it. The New York Rental Dealer Association had started on it, and I actually did a podcast with 2 guys that were on it. And it was like, I went there with the intention of fighting for rent to own. I did not know how much I was actually doing for it until somebody said, oh no, there's a reason why we're here. Instead of like, we're here because, we want to make sure that we keep going. No, we do that with the intent that every day, like you said, Joe, there's something coming up around the corner. And if you're not vigilant about it, you can lose access. And losing access in a state like New York is huge, right? So let's say we lose access in a state like Maine. Maine is only on the news when there's blizzards and some crazy stuff going on, right? It's never on the news. New York's in the news every day. That is what we call a key state. And if that state falls, how many states after that are going to fall? California, New York, Texas, they are always in the news. You get a big state like that.
Behind, like, who is, like, why are these things coming up as bills? Like, who's putting these things out there? Is it
so one of the representatives was handed a packet, as far as I understand it, and she'll probably call me if I get this all wrong, but she was handed a packet towards the end. She introduced it. It lumped us all in, right? So it's one of those laws that it was like, hey, we want to change this. And it's a broad stroke, right? That was a broad pen stroke. It covered a lot, including the rent-to-own industry that's been highly regulated since like the late 80s. So it was like, we don't really belong in that, but you also have a lot of people who don't understand rent-to-own. And they think, well, it deserves more regulation, or it deserves this, or it deserves that. No, we're doing pretty good without it. We're not a credit-based business. But putting it rent-to-own in a credit-based situation will completely change everything, right? So if you go to the store, and you guys know this, you go to the store and I say, I'm going to buy this sofa for $9.99. I might charge a card for it, but how much I'm ever going to pay over time is really up to me. I can pay the minimum payments and pay this back for the rest of my God-living life, or I can pay it off in 3 months. I can pay it off in one payment. That really depends on you. So the credit companies don't have to say this is how much it's going to cost, because they can't tell you that. It depends on how you pay it back. Well, rent to own isn't credit based. So we can tell you, hey, you make 24 payments on this particular, piano. This is what you're going to pay. Two totally different situations. But if you get one lumped into the other, it completely blows that out of the water, because then there's interest standards and everything like that. Well, rent to own doesn't pay interest. So it completely changes the business. It's a lot to go over. And I think that they were working on it to really help certain constituents in that area. Credit based, right? They don't want anybody getting over their head. It's 2024. Everything's going crazy. I think they lumped us in and really didn't know what they were doing. So now we're putting together a team so that when it's back in session, we can kind of let the lobbyists know, hey, this is what's going in. So the lobbyists can go in and kind of fight for us in a sense that we don't need that at all. Period. Let it go.
Yeah. But so now you have to convince them to against the direction that this is sort of heading. If you did nothing, they would classify you as a credit business, and then you'd have to follow all those credit rules. And that's not really the business that you're in. So you have to really defend yourself, and somebody has to be really convincing that, no, this is not what we are.
Right. And so that's part of it. So Edwin, who is on the council for APRO, he's like the top dog as far as when it comes to the legal situations, and he scours the news and different situations that happen in the nation for things that would put us under attack. He was the first one to notice that bill came in. He contacted, the NYRDA, for lack of a better term. There were some other things that went on, and they started the lobbyist situation to cut that, to inform whoever they need to inform that we don't need to be included in that. And that's one of the great things about APRO. Where TRIB is a buying group, when you have all these people that are interested, APRO is more on the legal side. And so when those things arise, they get everybody together and send out newsletters and information to some of the owners and everybody who's included in APRO. Hey, this is going on, so that you have an awareness piece of what's really going on out there, and making everybody aware. And it's one of those things I've got to say, if I wasn't a part of it, I wouldn't know how much I was missing it. It's an absolute great thing to see, and to know that somebody's actually advocating for me, even if I don't know it.
Yeah, you've got to. I mean, a business owner has so much to worry about. You don't have the ability to watch every little law that's being attempted to be passed, and make sure that somehow it's not affecting you when the law is, talking about payday loans, or talking about something that, is not really related, but there's a sentence in there that now connects it to a rent-to-own
That's
store.
exactly what it is. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. But it's always one of those things that I have to refer to people who understand it better than I do. And I'm glad that I had Edwin on the show, because Edwin was able to explain things to me that I just didn't understand. And that's one of the reasons why I love the show, because I know if you ever met Edwin, he's a very down to earth guy. He is not the guy that you're going to find on Facebook. He's not the guy you're going to find on Instagram. He's a little bit of an older gentleman. He sticks to himself, and he's industry knowledge. Like he could forget half of what he knows, and it would still be more than what I've ever learned. And to get him on, or to get him to discuss those things, or for him to be a part of what we're doing and share some of that knowledge, I would have never seen it anywhere else. I've been in the industry for 20 years. I've never met Edwin till this year. And he's been doing it longer than I've been around, right? He's been doing it since the late 80s. So he was instrumental in helping to get the statute 812.11155 passed in Florida, which is saying
Wait.
You said it wrong.
You can't.
812.155. What it is.
Okay.
So
What is schedule 812.55?
So 812.155 was basically saying that we are a rent-to-own situation and that we don't fall under credit because you don't have ownership. So under lease, basically you can use the product until you own it. There's a difference. So if you don't own it, then this becomes the collecting the merchandise that's out on the streets, right? Mm-hmm. You don't technically own it, so I've got to go get it. Where in credit is, if you buy it today for $9.99, regardless of what you pay for it, the credit says you have purchased this. However you pay it back is up to you, but you own this product. So Visa's never going to go after your sofa. Visa goes after you. That's the difference. So in the credit transaction is completely different. And so he was instrumental in getting that turned into a law. And it's on every rental agreement that we have in Florida. And it's probably on every rental agreement that's out there that goes under that same statute. But that's the backbone of what we do. And I got to meet that guy, and he's great. And he was on the show. And I don't think if I'd had the show, I would have ever really had a conversation with him. And so I really take back, the thought of, I'm so glad that I get to do this, and it doesn't feel like work, although sometimes it is, but I get to enjoy it. I mean, it's meeting the people that have helped me in my last 20 years, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
cool. Well, and it may not be work, but it is time away from the family. So, that could be the distinction there, is that while you enjoy it, it is also not, feet on the coffee table, cuddled up movie time.
Well, that's why I asked. Does she know that you have it? Because as time goes on, the more you enjoy it, the more it is like anything else. You've got to know how to fit it in.
Yeah.
Time management is absolutely crucial. Of course, Gabriel has like 75 jobs and he still has time to do this. So maybe it gives me hope that this is possible.
I don't have anybody breathing down my neck.
I don't know if you have time for anybody to breathe down your neck, man. You got to stay still long enough.
Actually, I spend way too much time trying to find somebody to breathe down my neck. So
Joe, don't get excited.
It's more of breathing this side of my neck as it is.
So getting into the podcast, I mean, so you've had a couple of people on that, Patrick was one of them. And then, oh God, his name was the tip of my tongue. This will make me forget. But you guys
David Larkin.
Yeah, Larkin. He was talking about, did you hear what happened to Badcocks? Because he had a lot of Badcock stories.
Yep. Yeah. I want your opinion. And Cons and Badcock were both big customers of Classy Art. I don't think I'm stepping out by saying that. And I'm very familiar with them because I shared all the same reps as, everybody I know in the furniture industry also called on Badcock. So,
being from Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I was Tampa guy and, so I have all.
I used to live miles from Mulberry. Like everybody knows Badcocks.
Yeah. So what is the conversation like within the industry, within Buddy Mac, within Buddies about this whole thing? Is there customers to be scooped up? Is it great? Is it terrible?
It's all the above. It's all the above. When you have it depends on who you're talking to and what their motive is. If you're saying, well, I have somebody like Cons and Badcock who share a lot of what's going on. They have a lot of market share in the Florida area, not just Tampa, not just where they started in Mulberry, everywhere in the Southeast. And they're not going to be on the table anymore. Somebody eventually is going to say, well, that's great. Okay. Not that we're always sharing the same customer, but their access to furniture has now become slightly more limited. So if I can offer every single one of their customers someplace to go, of course, not everybody's going to do it. But if I got 5% of every customer base of one of the stores that closed up, I'd be extremely happy.
Yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah.
So it's one of those things like, can you look at it that way, that there's more market share? Absolutely. You have other people that are looking at it like, yeah, but you had a financially sound company that was bought by a non-financially sound company to become more solvent. They weren't. It ended up taking Badcock with it completely. Now, which is weird because now there's some cons left. There's no Badcocks left. You're talking about millions and millions of dollars of furniture left on the table that they're trying to liquidate as soon as possible. It doesn't look good for a company that's been open 100 plus years.
There's no cons left.
No, there's going to be 3 left in the state of Florida. Well,
3.
3. So, like, I mean, and who knows how long that's going to be for? I mean, that could be very well true. They could not have any by the end of it all. And so, the way I look at it is, yes, does that mean that there are more people out there to possibly walk in our door? Absolutely. It also makes me worry that somebody who was doing so well for so many years has to lock their doors. I mean, we're not talking about Chapter 13. We're talking about gone. To me, that's a scary concept. I mean, in California and other places right now, California and probably probably New York, they're screaming for relief, right? McDonald's is not going to stay there, or they're not going to make it. $25, was it $20, $25? I can't remember what it was, the minimum wage for workers. I think it's $20 minimum wage for workers in California. McDonald's is like the staple of fast food. They're crying for help. They're closing. They're not expanding. When you have a Badcock leave, that can shake the pillars of what we're doing. You know, that's when you got to go back to your stores and go, how is our relationship with our customers? Is it solid? Am I giving them a reason to go anywhere? Because if we are, you better rethink that. Because if they find somewhere else to go and it's not a home like us, we can go the way of the dodo too. It happens every day. So for me, I find it scary because I've been around them. I find it to be, it's one of those things like you have to see opportunity in everything. You have to see the silver lining. And that means that there is a lot more market share where people might be looking around for something and you want 10 or 15 of them to land in your store. And it also means you've got to go back to your processes, and make sure that they're 100% solid, because if not, I mean, I'm telling you now, if they can go, anybody can go.
Yeah. There was an article 10 or 15 years ago in Furniture Today that said the top 100 in 1990, something like that. 80 of them were out of business now.
Oh, shit.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you start thinking back to, and it was, furniture, but you start thinking back to the Rhodes, the Levitts, the Sears Home Life. There's some big dogs. Heilig Myers.
That's the one.
Gone.
Well, do you guys remember in Florida, H.H. Gregg was huge. It came up out of nowhere and it was huge for like a few years.
We got to talk about all of my pain points. Like, listen,
and then
that's enough. I had enough. I have enough abuse from the bankruptcy court. I don't need this from my friends. We couldn't go on H.H. Gregg. I got hit by all of them. All of them.
So I agree. I mean, there was a Sears on every corner, and then there was Sears outlet, and before you know it, somebody was buying Craftsman out from underneath Sears. It just happens.
Yeah. Well, and if I'm the Buddy's franchise salesperson, I'm going out to all those Badcock stores and saying, "Hey, we can help. Just become a Buddy's."
We thought, I think the footprint might be too big, but it would be worthwhile. There's a lot of opportunity with those franchise owners, and I talked to David about what the plan is, and some are opting to step away, and some are opting to take action on their own, and that would be a great opportunity for Buddy's.
I agree on the footprint size. That's a pretty decent size footprint store.
They're
Probably
bigger. Are they? They're bigger.
Significantly bigger.
Yeah, that their normal store size is huge in comparison. They're not like Ashley stores where you're talking about 1 million square feet, but they are pretty decently sized stores. And I can guarantee you, and I don't know what, but I can guarantee you that I've heard things that there are people in place who are talking about how do I capitalize on what's going on? Whether it be picking up the leases that are still there, or finding a way to purchase everything under the sun to keep it under one place and then change the name to something else. There's a lot going on. Unfortunately, my pockets aren't as big as I would like them to be, so I don't get invited to those circles. So, but I know
if you sell the piano.
As soon as I pay it off, it will have the piano.
Everybody check Facebook Marketplace for one black piano.
Shh. Don't tell him. Don't tell him.
So there's a car dealership now, like a CarMax called H. Gregg. And there's one on my way home now. And every time I drive by it, I think of H. Gregg. And, like just more trauma resurfaces. Every time I drive by a car dealership, it's like the same color logo and shit. Like,
oh, I'm sure they did that on purpose. I'm sure.
I just got a meme served to me that said, remember, nobody can prove that you weren't the district manager of Circuit City or Radio Shack.
Except you're showing your age when you say that, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to live with that. You can't look like you just fell off the apple cart. You got to be able to, like, I look old enough to have a district with those guys, right? It's been a while. I used to love Radio Shack. I don't even know why I liked it, but I grew up with Radio Shack. When I found out they were coming out, I was like, that's crazy. But it's true though. A lot of those companies, I've heard somebody say it's the curse, like the curse of the Fortune 500. You say that you get up there, how long do you last? Right? Because somebody's jockeying for that position. Somebody wants number one. I mean, it's just the way of the world. I had a guest on 9 months ago. His name was Joseph Kopser, and this guy is he's done more in the last few years of his life than I think I've ever done in my life. But he was in the military, and he's met several presidents, and he's had a lot of conversations with a lot of big people. But the premise of the podcast was, almost to see what's going on in the future, to really read the bell curve. Where are you on that bell curve? Are you kind of responding to life? Are you in the middle where you kind of respond, but you still kind of innovate, or are you innovating? And right now, because life circles so fast, because of internet, because of the way, I could 10-minute read half the things on Google and learn more about it than I've ever really known. You know what I mean? We used to have encyclopedias that somebody used to come by and sell.
Shit.
And now you can just download anything. I go to YouTube University all the time. So, when you have that situation, it's like you need to be more on the innovative side, because by the time that you let it happen to you, it's too late. Rent to own has always been on the backside of that. We have always been about a couple years behind retail. And I think now, and a lot of people agree with me, that we're at a point in this junction where we need to get ahead of it. I think AI is going to be a big part of that. We're actually doing a segment on the show very soon where it's going to be AI dedicated, because if there's anything that I can tell you, furniture is furniture. You build it the same. What's different is the fabric, and it might have a little twist, or it might be contemporary, or it might be, everything in furniture, although it's tweaked out a little bit. Frames are frames, right? Where no matter where you build them at, it's made out of wood or steel or some kind of mechanism, or it's power, or they're fairly the same. How you sell it will always change. It's like a car, you know what I mean? From year to year, there's a few improvements. Now, if you could take a car from like 1980, it probably wouldn't match up to now. But like if you're going year over year, they don't change that much. You get, cars that drive themselves, but they kind of did that a couple years ago anyways. It's how you sell the car. Nobody knew who the hell Tesla was 5 years ago. Now he's one of the biggest, and nobody I know even likes their Tesla, but they're buying them. And the guy's one of the richest guys in the world. And pretty soon he might not be. It'll be some, company out of Beijing or something like that. Who knows? But I mean, it's how you sell it that's always changing. And we've got to stay on top of that. We've got to stay relevant. And I mean, that's just the way it is. We've got to be on top of the bell curve.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the rent-to-own business, I'm imagining, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, suffers a little bit because of the availability of no credit needed at furniture stores and appliance stores. Now, everybody has the option of no credit needed, and it's all third-party financed. And I think that there's going to be a backlash where those businesses can't take back the item. and just as many people stop paying, and there's no outlet for those. They don't get the merchandise back. They don't have the opportunity to resell it. They just have to take the loss. And I think that finance companies will start shying away from that.
Well, that's what I was going to go with, because the retailer's getting paid.
Yeah, the retailer doesn't care, but I think the finance companies will back away from it because they'll be like, "This is nuts!" Like we're TD Bank isn't in the business of repossessing a TV.
Well, if you take a look at the cycle, right, the last few years, it started with the pandemic, and then the money started coming. So your waterfall lenders started going through the roof. That buy now, pay later kind of situation started going through the roof. And if you take a look at it, if you would have bought into, a lot of these things about 3 years ago, you'd have a lot of money. I mean, they made a lot of money. Now it's a lot easier to collect when there's a lot of money out there. Trust me, I know. I've been in the rent home business a long time. When there's money out there, it's easier to make money. But like you said, they don't take it back. And so just like the credit crunches that we're going to start feeling, the price of homes are going way up. And it's not because they're just going up. It's because I can't afford to pay 7% based on the 3% I used to before. And everybody forgot it used to be like 20% back in the day and 12% and 15%. But it's, everybody's like, they see that 7%, like, I can't afford it. No, you're right, because your dollar doesn't go as far. So 7% is even farther away for you. Especially when you get like an FHA loan and you're not putting down $40,000 and you're putting down like $5,000. So this is going to be your payment. Well, the same thing happens with furniture. It's great, right? I put down this little amount and I get to make this little payment and I get to keep all this furniture. And then when bills start getting really tough, you don't have nobody knocking on your door saying, "Hey, just give me your stuff back and you'll be okay." I've got this bill, but I've got to pay for groceries and I've got to pay for my clothes getting washed and I've got to put gas in my car. And guess what happens to the credit? When your third tier lenders start going under, it's not a small thing. It's going to hit hard, really hard. And that's, I think, what's catching up to us right now is that in the economy, you have our third tier lenders who have picked up tons of customers. They didn't have to pay a whole lot. They went somewhere. They didn't get embarrassed. They were able to, somebody said, "Hey man, go to that office over there and somebody's going to give you something, to sign, you get it." And they get it. And they're like, they're great. All right. So I'm paying 22% or 29% or 35% a year. Who cares? I don't care. It's a small payment. I don't know what I'm talking. But, after 5 years and you can't return that sofa and your credit's almost shot now because now I can't start making it, it's when it's going to start falling apart. And I think that's why, when you mentioned it earlier, Gabriel, I think that's where the CFPB and everybody came in and said, "Hey, wait a minute. We need to start protecting some of our constituents in our area, whether it be the New York area, New York State, tri-state area, and going, we don't want them to be affected by easily getting something in their home or getting credit easily and then it destroying what little bit of credit they have left. And now they can't get anything." Right. And so we get lumped in there because they're like, "You guys are it too. We know about you. We don't like you." And so we get lumped in there as well. And they don't know we're actually their way out. And that's about as simple as it could be. You don't have to worry about credit. You could have failed at SEMA and all those guys before, and it's okay. It doesn't matter to me what your credit history looks like, as long as you have the ability to make solid payments. And if you can't, you just call me up. And the truth is, most people don't even realize you can call me any rent-own company in the United States. If you have them pick it up on Friday, they will probably redeliver it within 7 days and won't even bat an eye.
You don't take it personal.
Do they make that call?
Some, and some don't. And I'm gonna be honest with you, there's more people that don't than do.
That's
because it's embarrassing, man. It's embarrassing. You gotta have somebody come to your house, and if they're taking out furniture, it's okay if something else new is coming in. It's one thing if somebody sees that you're taking out my sofa, but you didn't bring anything else in. Yeah. You get embarrassed. I don't want anybody taking my stuff. I don't want my kids to ever see me without. So does it make financial sense to have somebody come and pick it up and maybe bring back it in a week? Yeah. Does it make sense in the fact that my kids I have to answer to my kids why they're watching TV on the floor? No. Yeah. So it's one of those hard decisions, but that's not a decision that the CFPB should be making. That should be made in home. My opinion.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. That's my opinion.
Yeah. When I had a Murphy bed store in Tampa, and my neighbor was rent and roll. And I'd never heard, I think this was early on in the being able to rent tires and wheels, because I had never heard of it. And I was kind of shocked that these guys were able to rent tires and wheels. And I went over and talked to the guy. We talked a lot, we were neighbors. And I said, I don't like, who's doing this? I don't understand how this works. And it seems like, for if I stop paying for my tea or my refrigerator, it's very difficult for me to move my refrigerator somewhere else. But I can just drive away with my tires. Like if I'm moving to Texas, I'll just stop paying and come get me. And he said, no, he's like, we get family information anytime we do an agreement. And when you call mom or the aunt or the dad and say, I'm coming out and I'm taking the wheels off of their car, the people come up with the money faster than they do other stuff, because without the car, then they can't go to work. And, there's so many other things. And so that always kind of baffled me that was a way for them to get money back, renting the wheels, and that it wasn't such a loser proposition.
I think you got to look at it from a lot of different standpoints, right? If I'm doing wheels and tires, they've already got a hard time putting a new set on there, right? And I'm not saying that wheel and tire is bad. I'm saying that wheel and tire is a necessity. They probably don't need the rims that they're getting, but it's a necessity regardless, right? You can buy regular Nikes, you can buy Jordans for $250. You don't need the Jordans, but people buy them anyways, right? So you kind of step out on a limb. You go after a necessity. You buy a little bit more. You got to remember, these people also aren't the same people that probably have enough money to just pack it up and go. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you really can't afford to put a new set of rims and tires on your car for whatever reason. Let's say you bent the rim. Let's say they're not working. Let's say you just want to be fancy in front of your friends, whatever. But tires are an absolute necessity, right? So if you're having to make payments on something like that, where it's a necessity, do you really have the payment amount to go, okay, I'm going to get a truck, I'm going to pack it all up, I'm going to go someplace, put a deposit down, which is maybe first last rent, now that's gone up 17% on average overall, and get a new electricity. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, right? Especially around tax time, but it does, it puts them in like, if I had that money, I probably just wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So before you make it so I have a really hard time getting to work, let me just pay you.
Yeah.
let me just make that payment. So, Joe, you're not drinking a whole bunch. I feel bad.
Yeah, I was gonna call him out earlier. He hadn't drank shit.
That is not true. I do have to confess, I got these fancy spherical ice cubes, and then in the ice bucket, they all grew together.
I can't say what it looks like you're holding there. I'm just
you can see how he's avoiding the issue at hand.
I've been drinking a lot.
I don't know. I haven't seen a cup. We're gonna do a playback and see how many sips. What are you drinking? Oh,
sponsorship opportunity. Four Roses. If your business is struggling, this is your opportunity to really grow your sales.
Well, in that case, just in case, I don't have a bottle to put on the screen. So
I was going to tell you to do that earlier. Yeah, just put your shoulders back like this.
We just got to pimp it.
Yeah.
I thought for sure you would have the backdrop up.
Yeah,
you know what? I was going to have it, and so I was putting it up somewhere because I was working with it, and I completely just didn't have time to get it again. And I was like,
do the virtual backdrop, just like your millionaire house right now. You just throw that logo up.
I do need to do that. You know what? I want to do that now because Lord knows I'll press a button and I'll stop things. But I'm going to do that. I actually do have it on all the time. I never wear a black shirt if I do that because the logo is black. So I always wear like a blue shirt or whatever. Yeah. And man, after this show, I just had so much going on. I was like, you know what? I just need to get on there. Right. That was like the first step to knowing that you have a problem is just admitting you have a problem. All right, I got a problem. I just need to get on the show. So I was like, let me get on the show. Let me find something good to drink and let me just get on there.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it was great, man. It was nice having you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate being here, guys.
Really interesting to hear this side of the industry.
Well, it's definitely something I love, and you guys are always welcome to chat it up with me. I'm always game to do it. I'm sorry we didn't talk more about furniture. I'm sorry.
What?
It's
I
really interesting
know.
because we are all in the home furnishing industry, and we've all been in it. Gabe's a little longer than us, but we've all been in it for a long time. Yet it's very different worlds that we're in. And I both of us would agree with what you said. Like once you're in the rent to own business, you're in it. Like you can't leave. That's just the way it is. I would classify the home furnishing industry as that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we had a whole thing about it because I called it snake teeth or whatever, and y'all were like, "That's a terrible analogy." Because like they're, I don't know how to,
angled in.
Yeah,
that was a great visual, by the way.
I've seen people get in and get out, and I've always said that when you're in it, it takes something to happen to you. Right. If you come in and nothing ever happens and you leave, you're not grown to it. It's not something that you want to do. But if you ever have an adventure, something that just was off the chain, knocked you out, like you got to tell somebody every once in a while, like this happened to me at work and you're never going to believe this. Once you go through those small adventures, you never look back. It just is what it is. You can leave, but you're always welcome to come back because you've solved this problem. You went through the trenches. It's kind of like being in the military, right? You go in the military and you can be out for 20 years, but for some reason, you get two guys in a bar that were in the military and they're reliving those moments. They're not out of it. They just have had a hiatus, right? I feel the same way in the rent home business, maybe in the home furnishing business. It's like you have those stories, and so you can do whatever you want to, but you get a couple guys and a couple drinks, and you go, "Hey, this happened. Do you remember that? No, this happened to you." Or, I was talking to this guy about the rims and tires, and he just told me one day, he was like, "I got 4 blocks and you got my stuff. We better figure this out quick or you ain't riding home from the grocery store." And, you just hear all these crazy things. And you're like, there's no way that happened. And then somebody's gonna be like, "No, it happened, bro." And when you live through those adventures, you almost start living in the industry. You're just like, yeah, I've been through that. I mean, I could say some wild stuff, and I don't want anybody to ever catch me. April will be like, "Listen, dude, we need to talk about that agreement one more time." But there's a lot of things that happened in my career, and it's just like I can't believe that they happened. When I look back on it, would I be here without them? Absolutely, hell no, I would not, because those things remind you every day that we're human, and that we have a lot to learn. And I am definitely in this career because I want to be here, not because this is just where I am. You know what I mean? Like I want to be here despite those things. And a lot of people that I went through those situations with, I can pick up the phone and call them today. Remember that time you went and did this?
Yeah.
What about that? Remember that crazy lady who told us to F off? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not getting my stuff. And then 3 days later, we're kind of like coming down the stairs as fast as we can. We're kind of bouncing around on the dolly and let's go. Things like that really, it builds a camaraderie. It really does. And guys, like 10 years later, we're still talking about the same thing. Like it's anywhere near relevant. It's not, but it draws us back, like you guys. I mean, you guys together almost have 30 years. So it's almost 60 years, 55 years of experience. Dude, you couldn't pay for that kind of stuff. Like the stories you guys could probably tell about the industry is like, you did what? Like, really?
Our sponsors don't let us tell our stories either.
Well, and it's fun. I've had a lot of fun in this industry. The people are fun. What we do is mostly fun.
Yeah.
I would, make a good living off of it.
All of my number 2 best friends are all in this industry. I mean, you don't get that anywhere else.
I can count all my number 2s on my hand. That's great. All of them, all 5 of them. So what does somebody have to do to be number 1, man? They got to breathe on your neck. Just tell me the truth. I want to know. Is it
on this side?
You got to breathe on this side of the neck with the backdrop.
No, like so. We were at the Vegas market not too long ago, and I met a girl, and so she's meeting a lot of my friends and family, work colleagues, and everybody she meets, I'm like, this is my second best friend. This is my number 2 best friend. And there's no number 1. And so, Joe's quite obviously my best friend in the world. And I do have a lot of really close friends, but I love them all equally. But I speak to Joe the most, I think. And so yesterday, this girl was asking me, she's like, "Joe's your best friend, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, but don't tell him."
Don't tell him. When you say best friend, you always do like this. You're this best friend, right? Is this the one? That's the position, right?
Yeah. So it became a thing over the last couple of weeks. It's always number 2.
That's hilarious. But it's, you know what? I think when you can look back on it, and the truth is always this: if you can look back on what you've done and smile, it's been worth it. Oh man, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens in this world that I ain't smiling about. So if I can ever look back on my career or the careers of my colleagues and just be like, you know what, we did that. I can honestly say we did that. Fail or not fail, to succeed is to just do it in spite of failure. And I think that, for all the things that we've gotten wrong, we've gotten some things right. And that's where this is how we got here. It's how we got on podcasts, right? It's how we got 3 guys talking about years and years of things that have happened to us, whether it was yesterday or the day before. And I'm just glad Joe's number 2. I'm glad he's moved up the ranks. You know what I mean?
Well done, me too.
Hey, Classy Art is my second favorite wall decor supplier.
See, now we done started something. I'll be like, okay,
wait, how do I get him off let me click him off.
Delete.
Remove.
If you feel bad, Joe, don't worry. I've got a piano to sell you.
Oh my goodness.
Pete, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this?
Prepping for my next podcast.
No, I mean, if you weren't in the RTO business. I don't mean like right now. I mean, watching
we're not talking about at the moment right now. I have no idea, because you know what? I honestly believe that I would have tried to start a business in some way, shape, or form. So I like the fact of working for myself. I think the best things I've ever learned was working for myself and realizing that you are still never the boss. You can make all the decisions you want to, but you're never the boss. You have a customer to please. You have somebody who's trying to buy something for you in big amounts or small amounts. You've got to watch your brand. I mean, your brand is like everything. And I realized that a lot of my work ethic came to me after I opened my first business, and it failed. And I did everything I thought I could to make it right. And I realized that either I didn't have enough, or I didn't have enough capital, or I didn't know enough, but it humbled the hell out of me. And I had to really look at myself and go, I'm better than that failure. And so I would probably have tried to open something else and try to work for myself at some way, shape, or form. Like right now, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail, but I am in serious debate about opening up my own rent-to-own store. And then the question always leads to, are you going to be a franchise or an independent owner? And there is so many pluses or minuses on that. And I'm like one of those people that always goes, okay, but I could do this or I could do that. And so, but it is, like you said, Gabe, it's capital intensive right now. And
yeah.
Capital ain't cheap, man. Capital ain't cheap.
I remember we're good friends with the people over at Crown Mark, who's a big vendor to you guys over at Buddies. And Sue's one of my mentors and Joseph's one of my friends. When we started importing products, I was like, give us some. They're their number 2 vendor. Number 2. That's fantastic. Don, don't watch this. Yeah. And that was her thing. I was like, what's the best advice? And Joseph's just like, it's expensive. Like, that's the advice. It's expensive. And, you just get surprised every day how capital intensive it can be, and then you have things like, the Badcock Con situation that went down. And then all of a sudden capital intensive is like an understatement. Right. And, so yeah, it's expensive. Well said, Joseph.
I can tell you right now that, there are easier businesses to be in. This is a hard business. I don't think I would love it as much if it was easy, but it is hard because you're managing, rent to own is a management from a lot of different standpoints. You're managing people who have to understand. And I think we've said it before. you cannot be easy on collections. You can't be that guy who doesn't want to have conversations that kind of get all willy-nilly and a little bit uncomfortable, because that'll be every day. Somebody, it could be the best customer you've ever had. And then one day you're going to catch them the wrong way and they owe you money and they're going to tell you, you know what? You can take a really long drive on a really short driveway and just end the call that way. And you have to be the person, that doesn't take it so personally and who can kind of just put the phone down, get up, go to the restroom, have a drink of your soda or whatever it is, chew your gum or whatever, and then get back on the phone and make it happen again. There are easier things to do, but I've never found anything more rewarding. I have helped people out that really needed it. I have been into homes where what we allowed them to get was what they had. That credit that we opened with them was what they had. I've gone into homes where, people have said, I've been here for years, and I can go into their home and go, wow, this is basically like a mini showroom of what we've had over the years. And you don't know those people you touch. And sometimes, that's why I continue to do it, because you just, it's a payback that you can never get from something else, in my opinion. Touching the lives of somebody, and everybody does it in their own way. I guess if you sell cars and they have never had a car before and it happens, this is what I do. Home furnishings in the sense that I give people hope in certain areas that they just didn't have before. And it makes it all worthwhile.
It's so personal, and you get both ends of the spectrum. It feels like being a police officer or a fireman, where you're seeing people at their worst moment, and you're seeing people who are just couldn't be more thrilled to see you because you're fixing everything for them in that moment. You're putting out their fire, and also you're seeing them when their house is burned down. It's got to be such an emotional roller coaster. And I can't imagine disconnecting from, I could never be in that business because I would take it too personal, especially when they didn't pay or want to give me my stuff back. I would feel like it was all of my stuff until it was paid for.
Well, I've had 20 years to figure it out. So it didn't start out that way, man. I've had a lot of problems, a lot of bumps in the road. When I was younger, I did take it personal. So it taught me humility.
And do you find that with new employees who are, well, let me ask this way first. Does everybody get involved in collecting, or are there certain people who collect? And so if everybody gets involved, or I guess regardless, the new people, do you have to tell them, hey man, don't worry about it. It's just a sofa. They don't pay. Oh, don't let it ruin your weekend.
Well, part A is no, not everybody's in collections. That answer is really dependent on how far you want to go. If you want to go into sales and just stay in sales and never do anything else but sales, then you can do that. If you ever want to go into management and move on into anything else, you have to go through all the facets of it. You have to. And even to be a really good salesperson, you should probably do collections at least a little bit. Because if I was to stand here and I was just, and what we call it as a sling, basically anybody walks in the door, you're going to walk out with something, even if you're not like qualified for it. I'm going to make sure you get it. Dang. You probably should get like a regular stationary sofa. I'm giving you something that's got power and lights and USB ports and everything like that. Well, guess what? Somebody's got to pay for that. So in 2 weeks or a month or 2 months, when they can't pay for that, guess who's getting just like chewed out in the back room? The credit guy's going to the sales guy. Listen, dude, you kind of screwed the pooch on this. You gave this guy, somebody who makes like $10 an hour, something that he needs $20 an hour to pay, right? So even to be a good salesman, you really should try being on the other end of that, because when you have somebody who's kind of reading your Miranda rights on the other side of the phone, it will make you think differently about how you sell that, right? So can you do it without going to collections? You could, but for it to be really good, you're going to really want to be on both sides of that coin. You're going to really want to. Just like a collections guy. It's easy to say, hey, man, give me my stuff or I'm going to go pick it up, and you piss somebody off. But then how hard did that salesperson have to work to get that sale? Did they sit with somebody for 30 minutes? Did they go over every fabric option? Did they get that from somebody else's store? Did they take time to deliver it on a Saturday, 5 days from when you got it? And then you're like, well, I don't know if I want it. No, I'll deliver it late. I'll deliver it early. I'll do whatever it takes. And then you find out some Yahoo a month later is going, give me my stuff back. And you're like, dude, I special ordered it just for them. Nobody else is going to get that yellow sofa because nobody wants it, right? So, you got to play both sides of the fence. Otherwise, it'll never make sense to you. So, just to be successful, I think everybody should. Could you do it? Yeah. Do you want to? No, not in any stretch of the being.
Yeah. And you have to, I'm assuming you have to calm people down. You have to calm the new employees down. Like
de-escalation is almost like a second superpower right now.
Yeah, because
you have to.
I can only imagine. Well, like I've had customers say some really awful things to me, and we weren't. This was. You gave us a deposit, and we custom ordered this thing for you, and now you decided you don't want it, and we have this thing that was made just for you, and so you get into this contest where,
Right.
I'm telling you have to take it. You're telling me you're not going to take it. And that becomes a heated, contentious discussion. I can imagine that there are instances that get a lot more aggressive than that. And then as that person who is calling to say, just give me my $10 or give me my thing back.
Well, it kind of sucks because being a regional, you always have that, right? So you go from having one store of it to like several stores of it. So when they have the problems, and I want to talk to your boss. The only time I talk to customers now are like, I'm really upset and I want to tell you the whole story. So you get better at it at time, but the only thing I can really say is, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's really difficult to have somebody kind of tell you how you're living your life and what you do is everything is wrong and yada, 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 yada. But the one thing that I've always learned to try to help make myself remember is you are the extension of whatever brand you are, right? So if I was some big box retailer and somebody calls in, it's always you guys. I don't know who has on the other end of the phone from Adam, right? I don't know, but Pete answered the phone today. So Pete, you guys do this, and Pete, you always do that, and Pete, you guys suck. And you've got to remember that you are just the catch plate for whatever they're throwing. And it's not always necessarily you. It's I'm upset and I'm frustrated. I'm very worried, especially in this kind of position that we're in as a rent to own. I don't have a lot of money, and the little bit of money I have might have just gone out of the window. Or you want something from me when somebody else does. And I'm very, very upset at that. And I'm just going to tell you that I don't like you. I'm going to tell you that it's all your fault. You're the person who answered the phone. So today you're getting all of it. And just try to remember that, it's hard to hear, but sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. I can't tell you the amount of times I just sitting and listening to somebody just kind of literally me out for like 5 minutes. And then, they're like, okay, I'm sorry. I just had a rough day. You're just like,
I do that to Joe all the time.
Well, how have you transferred that skill into your marriage?
So the first thing I
wrong. I hate you. This is your fault. And you just gotta.
So you listen a lot, right? And then when she goes, and how have you become so good at it? I said, well, baby, because you're number 2.
I'm glad I can teach you something.
And don't ever tell her who's number 1 and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Can't tell you, baby. You just
keep her guessing.
That's it. No, I mean, you just let it I think I'm better at it now. The more that I've been able to do it, the more I've been able to listen. I used to be able to, like, if somebody was shooting off at me, it was really hard for me not to come back and go like, this decision happened because of all the choices that you made, not me. Like, I didn't make this, like, this was you, right? And then who wants to hear that? Like, I'm mad at you and it's my fault.
Oh my God.
Let me tell you, and listen, as much as I'd love to say it, I ain't a big dude, okay? I've been threatened everything to happen in my life every 6 ways from Sunday. I remember the first time that this lady threatened me. This is an adventure. I didn't say this. This is only one adventure I'm going to share, but she was very mad at me. She was very past due. And I was just very resilient. I won't say how I was, but I was the guy that you were going to pay or you were going to give it back to because you just didn't want me bothering you. And again, I'm not the biggest dude, man. I'm not that guy who's like towering over you. You're gonna give me my stuff back, lady. Nah, I was just like a thorn in her side. And then she told me, and I'll say this is the last thing I'll ever say, but she was like, I will take this TV and I will twirl it around with the power cord till I hit you with it. You gonna get off my porch. I was like,
damn.
I was like, did you just threaten me? And back then, they weren't flat TVs. We're talking about a 27-inch box TV that she had literally threatened to like just to rope it open, like knock me out. And she didn't say it with such nice wording either. And I was like, I actually had to stop it. I was like, did you just threaten to knock me out with the TV? And she said, you're damn right. And I was like, all right, I'm leaving. I'll be back in 5 minutes. You know that, right? And I ended up getting the TV. Now, was that necessarily the right way to go? Probably not. Did I lose a customer for life? Absolutely. But she taught me as much as I thought I knew. I didn't know enough. I could have resolved that better. But it was one of those things that when I got back to the store and I told my boss, yeah, I got a TV and this is what happened. He was like, sit down, bro. We need to talk. Okay. You can't do that. And this is all the reasons why. And so now, when my wife is telling me, we're going to buy, what was it you guys said on that podcast? It was like, you're going to buy Gain. No, you're going to buy Tide. What did Joe say? We'll buy both. Yeah. We'll do both. I don't even care anymore.
They're in two detergent households.
Like, I've never heard of that, Joe. You are unique in that, I mean, the most we might separate is I bought Tide liquid and my wife bought Tide pods, and that's about it. But it was like, it was one of those things like I had to learn it. And so it made sense at the end. And now I just, yes, honey. Yeah. No, it's a great idea. It's great. Number 2, baby. Just number 2. Just remember that.
Not the happy wife, happy life.
No, I do believe that I do believe there's a place for everybody. I don't believe in that happy wife, happy life thing. I think it goes both ways.
Good, because we were about to have another 2 hours.
You just became number 1 best friend for good.
Well, the thing is this. Do I believe that it's always 50-50? No, I believe there are going to be days where she's going to put in more in this than I am. I believe there are going to be days where I'm checked out. I believe there are days when I'm doing my podcast at 12 o'clock at night and I'm checked out and she fed the baby and she took care of the house. There's going to be days when that happens. And then there's going to be days where she's like, you know what? You're going to take care of the baby and you're going to help me out with the house because I am burnt out from those nights that you were running the podcast. You know what I'm going to say?
That's fine, but maybe rephrase it of you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Maybe it's more like, hey, what's your tank at right now? Because I'm at 10%.
Right. And maybe that happens with time. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, you learn how to talk to somebody else too and hit you with a TV. But yes, you learn those things. And over time, that's why having a partner is so important over the years, because you learn those things. You learn how to communicate with that person that
one hopes. Right? So I've been on both sides. So I had a partner for the majority of my adult life. And then the last 6-7 years, I've been without a partner. And so, there's pros and cons to both sides, but a lot of partners don't learn how to communicate effectively. And, so I'm glad you guys do.
Well, the divorce rate right now says nobody knows how to talk to anybody right now, but sticking through it is worth it. And that's kind of like how I feel about this business. It has its ups and downs, but if you stick through it, there's something good at the end of it. Yeah. That's my phrase. I'm going to stick to it.
Well, and I think that you learned something about people and human nature in the rent-to-own business that most people don't get. So, you have to deal with people in some of their worst instances and then also stay friends. Like that's the ultimate goal for you is you got to do something really difficult for them. And also you want to stay friends with them because like they're your customer. And you want them to come back ultimately. Maybe they're going through something right now and they can't pay, but ultimately you do kind of want them back, right?
Well, we're like those friends that you don't realize how good of a friend you are until you really get down to the nitty-gritty, right? Because like we'll see somebody in the midst of an agreement, they've changed their phone number 3 times. They've moved a couple of times. We know that there are times when we were knocking on the door and the lights were out, not just turned off, right? And we still keep on coming back. Hey, I know we picked you up last week. It's all good. You good? No. Yeah, you moved into another place? No, it's all good, man. As long as Yeah, which couch do you want? Because at that point in time, it's about the relationship. Like, you got to be honest with me, and I'll be honest with you. Do I like you returning it? No, I want you to own it. But if that's what it takes for you to keep doing business with me, if that's what it takes for you to get to ownership, that every 6 months I'm just going to have to hold it in my store for a little while, that's what I'm going to do. And it's okay.
And
It's hard to break the ice that way, but it's okay.
Fuck, man, that sounds horrible.
do we?
It is what it is, man. It is what it is.
Gabe is going through that right now with cons. He's trying to get those last 3 stores to pay.
He's like, look,
listen.
you guys are still open. I need my money.
Look, I got a fucking story. I got a story. Okay. So obviously they owe me a ridiculous amount of money, right? That I'll never see. So we're at the RTO show, and our special.
The RTO show is the name of the podcast.
RTO World 2024.
Sorry, the RTO World. We're at RTO World.
Where the RTO show was, yes.
Yeah, thank you. So we're there, and our market special is revolved around our display stands. Well, we didn't bring any, right? And so we're like, shit, who's around town that has stands? And so anyway, so we make some calls, and there's a Badcock 3 miles from the location of where we're at. So I call my buyer and I call my rep. I'm like, hey, y'all got it? Is this a franchise store? Is this a corporate store? What's the deal? Anyways, they make it happen. They're like, yeah, you can come get a stand, blah, blah, blah. Just make sure you bring it back. Like what? Like, you owe me.
You know how many zeros you owe me?
Yeah, and you want this $100 stand back? Oh my God.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back.
We brought it back
On the car with blocks. I'll bring it back.
With no bolts in it.
Sorry, guys.
Are you missing parts?
Do we know what
charge it to the game, you know? Just charge it to the game, baby. You owe me, I owe you. All right, let's call it a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like potato, baby. It is what it is. You know?
Do we know what happens in these Badcock instances where the inventory was not owned by the licensee but owned by corporate?
So everything
what happened? Can the licensee not sell any of the stuff that's in their store?
So
or do we not know, or are they just like, fuck it?
The way Badcock is operated is that all the inventory is owned by corporate, and it's all essentially on consignment. And so then anytime a franchisee sells something, it's then split up, right? But there are options, but I should probably not talk about them on here for the franchisees.
So we really don't know. We don't know, like in each of those individual circumstances, what the legality is of that stuff that's in their store, but sort of belongs to Badcock, but's kind of theirs, and now they can't operate.
No, it belongs to Badcock corporate. All the inventory belongs to Badcock corporate. All I can say, I can tell you what I would do if it was my store. So they are spending a ton of money and raising money on the con side. So apparently they need $20 million in order to
go out of business.
Yes.
I saw that.
Yeah. But if I owned a Badcock franchisee, if I own a Badcock franchise, I would say, come get your fucking merchandise. I'm taking the sign off, and I'm going to operate my own furniture store.
Yeah.
The question is, who holds leases?
I think that the franchisee holds the lease
under the Badcock name.
No, I think
under their own name.
Under their own name.
Yeah.
Well, then that would make sense.
Right. Come get your shit. I'm not going to participate in your liquidation event because that has nothing to do with me. this is your inventory and you have failed me because I've invested in you. And this sounds terrible because, you know, the Badcock family is very close to me and I love them dearly, all of them. And I'm glad they got out when they did because that was best case scenario for them. But if I was a franchisee, that's what I would do.
You know, what would bother me is to see what's happening to it. Because you're right. They got out of it, right? They got bought by FRG. I think it was 5 years ago or so. And then like a couple years ago, they sold to Cons, and Cons, for whatever reason,
for Con stock.
Oh, hold on. Okay. So they sold like maybe 2 years ago, maybe less.
Franchise group.
It's a franchise group. Franchise group liquidated and kind of just gutted the company and cashed out some where there was some easily cashable stuff, and then sold to Cons for 49% ownership in Cons. So essentially franchise group sold it but still owns it.
Damn. That's cold-blooded.
Yeah.
You know, Pete,
You could buy it, but you won't own it.
Yeah.
That's pretty rough. I mean, I wish I'd have thought of it.
It's significantly above my pay grade, but the man behind it, and I'm not gonna,
I hear you.
is quite brilliant. And there's a lot of things I'm sure up his sleeve. I don't agree with it. I dislike it a whole lot, but he's still a customer of ours in other areas. And so it's just a weird way to do business when you're talking to somebody like us three who, operates with morals, principles, and values versus somebody who's operating for a profit. And when you get to that level and understand the game the way he/they know the game, it's a different dimension, it's wild.
I don't ever, the truth is I don't ever want to know if I'm going to get that far. I don't know if I ever want to get that far.
Yeah.
Certain people like to say I'm the richest man in the world. You can save that dollar. I don't care. I don't want everybody in my business. I don't want every time I wipe my nose, it's on the front page of every news magazine. I don't want to have to report, my stocks to everybody, Warren Buffett and all those. I don't want to do that. I want to be wealthy. I want to enjoy it. I want my kids to be happy. Besides that, I don't need the rest of that stuff, man. But I'm gonna tell you the truth. It's more problem than it's worth, in my opinion.
And look, I mean, I'm with you, but I don't really care if my kids are happy. That's on y'all. Like,
he said that so straight, didn't he? Like,
hey, look, because it's the truth.
I gave you the opportunity. I mean,
that's what you do with it. That's number two.
Like, yo, kids, you number two, baby. Number two. if it's not game, I ain't worried about it. I'm worried about what y'all do. You know what I mean? Check out. I don't care.
Who was it that got some award and said, you know who I think? I think me. I did all this hard work. I think me.
That was me on TikTok. It was a Snoop Dogg voice.
Oh, yes, Snoop Dogg.
And I bought a mic just like this to record my TikTok using that soundbite.
So here's a question, guys. I mean, where do you go from here? What's the direction of the podcast?
That is a great question. And so for me, one of the more important things is just to have a video diary of all of these conversations and this, like, we're not, I mean, I don't think that we're trying to monetize it in any sort of way. We want to be funny, to be engaging, to have people watch it because they enjoy what they're seeing. If we can be educational, that's great. But it becomes just a sort of video diary of hanging out with your friends and talking. And you do get to sort of ask your friends questions that you don't ask when you're just, you know, at the game together, or you're, you know, going out to dinner, and, you know, so it gives you a little different perspective on, you know, the insights to some of your friends' lives and that sort of thing. So
yeah, I think that's perfect. And, you know, just to double down on we're not looking to monetize it at all. It's just
other than bourbon sponsorships,
right,
which are very important.
I was gonna get there. It's just kind of the being silly, right? Like Joe and I are gonna talk whether it's on camera or off. And so why not do it on camera, and why not have a buddy on, and why not have a cocktail, and like to get to do the fun things like we're going to be on the bourbon trail. Let's find a bourbon sponsor. And now the question is, why did Joe get so dark all of a sudden? Oh, he's back. He's back. Yeah, you went
camera.
You went ethnic for a minute.
It's my jam. I appeal to everybody. That's sort of my thing.
It's the flamingos, man. It's the flamingos. I just the reason I ask is, like, you know, I wonder, because you guys have good chemistry, and I was just wondering, like, where does it go from here? Because I definitely have a direction. I mean, I have a 5-year plan that I'm 2 years into, so I'll tell you in 3 years if I made it or not. But I want to go somewhere. I feel like I have a purpose to get there. But I see you guys, and you seem like you're having fun, and you're having these conversations, and I'm just curious where you think it'll go.
Yeah, who knows? Time will tell. I mean, you know, we're fortunate enough where, you know, we don't need sponsors. We don't need a purpose. We don't need it. Like we're both very happy with what we're doing in life. And this is just a way to have fun. Like that's really all it is. You know, it's like he got a glass with Two Homeboys logo, and I get to give him shit because he didn't buy me one. Well, I bought him the beautiful neon sign behind him, and then he gives me shit because his kids bought it for him. But, you know, it's just that bullshit, right?
Wait a second. So you're holding on to something here. You clearly have feelings about this class.
I thought I was clear on the last episode.
I sent you an astronaut, and I sent you a tomato.
Broken. Oh, by the way, I got the second astronaut working.
Good.
I just used the wire it came with. It didn't matter what block. So probably the first one worked too.
So now Pete's totally out of the loop on what the astronaut thing is.
It's better you don't know.
It really doesn't matter.
If it shimmies or vibrates, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good, man.
There's suction and rotation. It's like
if there's gyration, we just call it a day. No, we don't want to know. We don't want to know.
My kids got me the glass for my birthday. So Gabe got bent out of shape because he thought that I bought the glass for myself and I didn't buy him one. And when I revealed the glass, he had already ordered the neon sign to be sent to me. So he was all bent out of shape, but it was a gift from my children.
I wasn't bent out of shape.
He's clearly bent. He's still talking about it.
Listen, you tell Owen he better find a new uncle. I'm out. I'm out.
I don't care if that kid's happy. I don't care if he's happy.
Yeah. Owen, I care if you're happy. Your dad?
Play back the tape. Play back the tape. He's not just care if you're happy.
Alex, rewind that shit.
There's no way he'll find this 2 hours and 17 minutes into the podcast.
He's going to use something like video blog, and I don't care if you're happy.
We're making that segment into a reel so I can send it to him and Emily, just like that. And
that 60 seconds. You know, that's good. That's good. Well, I mean, I'm glad I got a chance to share, you know, some time with you guys. I've never been on this side. It's actually the first time I've been on a podcast other than my own. So it's a first for me to be on here. So I appreciate you guys having me on and talking a little shop talk.
Oh man, it's been a pleasure, right? Like, I mean, you have your own deal and it's like legit, and we're out here just dicking around. And so it's been accurate. It's been fun. And so we have to return the favor. Let's get something on the calendar.
Absolutely.
And I know yours is significantly more structure. I'll leave I think we have to leave our alcohol at home. And
Yeah, you
Yikes.
can have drinks and just non-alcoholic drinks.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
can have drinks all you want to. We'll make sure they're clear
and
bottle.
Alex will have a censor button for when I cuss.
You
Yeah.
know, it's one of those things that I never thought that I would go down that road. And then as it's grown, I've had people actually say something like, I'm glad it is the way it is.
Mm.
I'm glad that I can have any. So, I didn't know it, but at one point in time, I was like, you know what? I had everybody in my store, everybody in my, let's say we had a meeting or something like that of GMs or something like, I had everybody listen to that podcast.
Mm.
And so when I hear that, I really go, well, I'm glad I didn't say something like completely outrageous, because then it'd be like, don't listen to that part, but listen to the rest of it. So it works out. So sometimes when you have the training bit, or you have somebody who's really got something good to say, it works for me in what I do to make sure that everybody can listen to it. It's really good. Like the last episode that came out, the one with Jason Winters on economic turmoil, I really wanted to ask him some questions, man. I wanted to kind of like twist it a little bit and just say like, are we what's really going on?
Mm.
And he had some really good answers. And I love it. When you were talking about the podcast, it's specialized conversations. It's conversations that we would have any day of the week. It's just specialized. We don't venture off into like throwing out the trash and everything else. We stay on a specific direction, maybe not on the same topic, but a direction. That's why I like podcasts, because sometimes you say things that you might not say anywhere else, because who's really going to ask you those questions on a normal day, right? You can ask you like, dude, did you get too serious for me, man? Have another drink. But in a podcast, you get to ask those questions, and somebody might actually be listening. And I hope, dear God, that one of those conversations, one of those recordings, one of those things is going to change somebody's life for the better. And they can go, you know what? I learned that on the RTO show. I'd love that. I'd love that.
Do you find that when you tell people, well, I mean, I guess you don't even need to tell people because you're wearing the shirt at everything you go to. And so, but like you wear the shirt all the time, right? Like you constantly. So do you find that people say, you got a podcast? Oh my God. No,
so
really
it's funny
cool.
that you say that. So we're going to go into a story. See, yes, there's branding on everything I do. At some point in time, when I go to a show, and I don't do it every day at work because I do have to represent buddies. But if I'm at a show, I'm going to have a pin, a hat, a shirt. It's going to be on my shoes. If I pull off my pants, you're going to see my underwear. It's going to be somewhere. It's
whoa.
on.
Let's go.
What kind
Let's
of
go.
shows are you
Prove
going to?
We need to put them. Well, anyway,
Prove it.
So I'm going through, and Gabe's like, "Hey, man, you got a podcast?" Yeah, you got a. So yes, there are plenty of times where you'll be going around and nobody knows, and then you see that thing go off, and it's awesome. It's awesome. Like I've had people who are partners of other people. And not necessarily just like husband and wives, but like literal partners. Like they own a business together, and like, yeah, I listen to it all the time. This guy I was listening to, and he's like, "Oh, is that the guy you were listening to? I didn't know who it was. I didn't even know it was an RT." And it's like, "Yeah, what do you think it's called, the RTO show?" And it happened in front of me, and I'm like, I don't want to get in the middle of it, but okay. But it happens all the time, and it's you mentioned that too. It was also in that episode you mentioned that there's that trial period in Trib where you start, but you have to keep it going for a while before you catch on. And that is the exact same way. The first time that we did it, man, I don't think anybody ever knew that we had a podcast, like ever. And I was telling everybody, telling my mom, like she ain't gonna never listen to it. Mom, you gotta listen to it. I need to download. And then, as time went on, it's starting to pick up. This last show was really good for me. And the podcast, there was a lot of people that wanted to hear about it and wanted to get on it and talk about it. And it's funny that we were talking about, franchising and capital, because somebody at the show was like, "Hey, I like the show. I want to talk to you about capitalization because we deal strictly with people who want to open rent to owns. And there's not a lot of businesses that understand how it works and how the cash flow works and how the mindset works. And we specialize in that." And I was like, that's awesome to say. They want to come to the show to be represented in that way, to get their word out to as many people as they can about just that. So, going back, yeah, it's not just one thing about the RTO industry, it's everything. And every day there's somebody like, I had no idea. And I love it. I love it because it gives me another opportunity to say, well, now you've got 70 episodes to catch up with, you know what I mean? Or whatever the case is, and keep on going. So it
How
does
many
happen.
episodes do you have?
We're about 65, 66 in right now or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he has seasons. We haven't talked about seasons, Joe.
I know. Well, I like turmeric, and I mean, that's a season. Is that what we're talking about? Garlic powder, garlic salt, like all the seasons. I like everything but the bagel is my favorite season. But it's difficult to tell how many
Pete,
without counting.
Do you
how
need
many
a
you have.
co-host? You can have him.
You know, one thing I can say about, you know, when you're in these situations where you're not bound to it, right? You have a day job like you guys do. You can enjoy it for what it really is. You want to have somebody on, you have them on. You don't want to have them on? It's okay. It doesn't kill me. If somebody says, hey, you know what? I want to be on. And then later on they cancel. It's like, it's okay. It's all right, because this is not my bread and butter. I do this for pure enjoyment, to get the word out and to get entertainment out and to get knowledge out. And so when you don't hold it as a crux, you know, like you said, where I have to do this because this is my job, and you do it because you enjoy it, it's a completely different story. You know, have seasons, don't have seasons. I never expected to have seasons. The reason we have a season is because the first time we were recording, I was like, dude, I need a break for the freaking holidays. Like, I am not going to be recording on Christmas. And you're like, what are we going to do? I don't know. Let's have a break. Well, what do we call it? I don't know. The end of season 1, start of season 2. That sounds great. And at the end of season 4, here I am negotiating another sponsorship with APRO. So it just works out that way. It's great. You know what I mean? Go with the flow. Do whatever makes you guys happy. I've learned to appreciate that so much.
I think it'd be fun if we did seasons. We wouldn't name it 1, 2, 3. We would name it, you know, coriander and cumin.
No. We got to do like Taylor Swift and like we have eras. We don't have seasons.
We have what?
Eras.
The eras.
Era.
The era. Gabriel, the era of Joe.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
The era of the two homeboys. So I do want to ask this before we go. Where did the name come from?
I invented it.
Talking about it, and I was just kind of curious. Did you settle on where it literally came from?
Yeah, we knew exactly where it came from.
I'll disagree.
It was a URL that was available. We literally went through every URL, and Two Homeboys was the only. No, so we are two homeboys, two buddies, and we are in the home industry. So we're two home boys as two separate words.
He gets it, bro. He's asking who came up with it.
What?
How did you come up with that? So I mean, like, where did
I
it come
came
from?
up with it.
You came up with it. You were like, hey, Gabe, you're number 2, baby. He was like, two homeboys, man. We're two homeboys.
Actually, no, the number 2 thing came after the two homeboys. We should at some point put up. We have a list of possible names.
Oh, we do have a brainstorming session
of possible names.
Yeah.
I
did steal the H.
Changing it?
I
two
stole
furniture industry buddies.
I stole the chair H from a customer of ours, home furniture in Louisiana, and they have the H as the chair. I stole that.
I didn't even know that was a chair. I thought it was just like bad penmanship.
Are you serious? You know what, both of you?
I just hear in the background. Yeah, me too, man. Me too. I thought it was the font, man. I thought the font just, I thought
Jesus
the font was an H.
Christ.
It was weird serif font. So, Pete, do you follow any other podcasts that you sort of try to emulate, or that you take inspiration from? You know, Joe Rogan or any of the podcasters out there?
Yeah, so I started listening to Joe literally for the purpose of, he has like one of the biggest podcasts out ever, and he's got millions of listens. And how can I be like Joe Rogan? And it took me like 5 whole minutes to be like, no, I'm not going to be like that. It's not going to work. Right.
Yeah.
He's all over the place. I do not have a podcast. It's all over the place. I am very niche specific. I mean, who the hell out there is talking about rent to own specifically? Right. That's not going to happen. I mean, this guy has had people on talking about aliens landing. He's talked about politics.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
I'm just saying. I mean, like,
watch your mouth.
He's had everybody on from.
Don't offend our sponsors.
He has talked to Elon Musk all the way to political figures. I mean, he has such a wide array of things that he talks about, and No, I couldn't be like them, but I did start. So I was like, okay, let me be on the hunt. The first person that really came to mind was Patrick Bet David. I love the way he does it. I love that when he's talking, you can say whatever. The only rule that I think I've ever noticed on Patrick Bet David is that you can say whatever you want to. You just have to back it up. It can't be an opinion where you're like, you know what, that's stupid. And he goes, yeah, that's stupid. He's like, no, why? Why is it stupid? Like, why do you feel that way? What is it that's compelling you to feel this certain way? And it better not be some like willy-nilly answer. Like, we really have to have something behind it. And that meant something to me. Like,
and is that BET?
PBD.
David?
If you look up PBD, Patrick Bet David, I believe it's
I think it's
BET.
Okay. Yeah. He's comes up as an entrepreneur. Patrick Bet David with a hyphen between Bet and
yes.
David.
So he comes from out of country. He came over here legally, and he's now worth a lot, but he has a serious story to tell. And so when he talks about it, yes, again, they are a little bit more open stream. I mean, everything political to, he'll have somebody like Dennis Quaid on, I think is the last person he had that I saw. But, I like his style. I like that
he went to my high school. I just want to throw that out there.
So I mean,
and his brother.
I like the way he addresses things. He does a lot of homework. He does a lot of research. And if you want to say something, it's absolutely okay. Just have something to back it up.
Yeah.
And Ed Milet, the Ed Milet Show, is actually really good. He's a twofold. He does some by himself and he does some with guests. And Ed Milet was probably one of the bigger influences in my life too, as far as the podcasting. Like, he's very he believes in health. He believes in God. He believes in what he believes in. And you can believe whatever you want to. It's okay. But he's going to tell you what he believes is good. So
now, great question. This sort of piggybacks on what we just asked, but what categories do you listen to? What are you into personally outside of RTO and home furnishings? What are you listening to that's not related to work?
I like information. One of the reasons I like Patrick Bet David is that he does talk a lot of current events. The Mindset Mentor is another one. The Mindset Mentor is like, they're probably like 10 to 15 minutes. Probably the longest one is like 15 minutes. And it's basically like a daily dose. Well, it's not a daily dose, probably 3 times a week, where it's the mindset, but it's information. It's talking about the human psyche and how you can create things in your life or not create things, and how you feel about things and why we see things the way we do, and how to manifest your thought processes. Not like, if I think about gold's going to pop up, but it's like, if I feel down, or if I feel like something's an object in my way, if I feel like I can't get this done, why is that? And what can I do to make it better? Something about Ed Milet's kind of like that way too. I like listening to things that are going to be informative, and at the end of every podcast, I want to take something away from it. That matters to me most. Like, if I listen to something in background, I'd just rather be music. Like, if it's going to be behind me, I'd just rather be music. I like the way that sounds. But if I'm listening to, if somebody's talking, I can't have talking in the background, because that will annoy the hell out of me. Like, just, dude, shut up. I'm trying to work here. But if it's on, I want to listen to it. I want to understand why they're saying what they do. And people who have purpose drive me. I don't think that's why I listen to Rogan that much, because it's just talk. I want talk with a purpose. Like, I'm talking with you for a specific thing, whether it be economical, whether it be educational, whether it be political. I just like learning things and knowing things, I mean, it's a personal thing. Don't be getting all deep on me, man.
That's what we're here for. We're here to get deep, and it takes 2 hours before we get deep. And you got to be into the.
I'm on my second glass, so I'm good now.
I had 2 before we started.
Yeah, I'm good now. So
lightweight.
Yeah, I know.
Joe, I know you're not talking. Taking a sip every 45 minutes.
This was significantly fuller, so you can reference back to that.
I will say I haven't tried that version. So 4 Roses is awesome. It
was also a gift from my children. So if you want to be a bitch about it, and
we're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go buy it now. We're gonna go buy it now.
I'm talking to you. This is some bullshit. This is some bullshit.
Some bullshit. No, but yeah. I mean, I'm glad you asked. I mean, those are probably the top 3 that I listen to that matter to me the most. It's just
I feel like the the Ed Milet, he is a big sort of jacked seeming dude with a lot of gruff opinions about things. Is that fair?
He's very direct. If he
Okay.
has an opinion, he has an opinion. It's not, you're probably not going to change his mind. That's not
Yeah.
to say that he doesn't have like, you know, drawn opinions where he's not 100% sure. But if it's on the podcast, he has come up with a conclusion and he feels directly about how he feels. And that's kind of why I feel the same way about Patrick Bet-David. You can say what you want to, just back it up. You can say whatever, you know, whatever your mindset is or whatever your thought process is, as long as you don't sound stupid talking about it, right? Don't just say it because, you know,
Well,
I don't like
that's why I like Joe Rogan, is because he doesn't go in with a preconceived notion. In my opinion, he's the best interviewer of our time.
He's very open, very open.
Very open. He has his opinions and he brings on opposing opinions and gives the platform and asks the questions that the answers will oppose his opinions. And so from a knowledge standpoint, I just love what he does.
He does a great job, but like you said, he goes into it very open. So when I pick a podcast, I usually pick it because of the title and what it involves. And so they're a little bit more directed. Joe is very open. And the reason I like that about him is you usually can't say anything too stupid, as long as, again, you're not saying like something really randomly dumb, because he allows you to, you're a rope, and he allows you to hang yourself if that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
He'll talk about it, but you're not going to give him a fact that he doesn't really know, or he's not going to find out. Like, he's very intuitive, but he's also very open. So you could start with one thing and end up completely out in left field. And usually when I'm listening to a podcast, if we're talking about space, if we're talking about economics, if we're talking about politics, that's just the direction I'm in the mood for when I'm listening to the podcast. So, you know, and his podcasts are like 2.5 hours, sometimes 3 hours. And I have to pause it. I'm getting out of the car, going and, you know, get to work, come back. And I kind of lose myself after a while.
Just to be clear, we've been on for 2 hours.
Okay. So
time flies when you're having fun.
Pot, meat, kettle. I don't know. Sorry, it's my fault. But
I am saving a question. I don't want to wrap this up because I'm really enjoying this whole like exchange with all of us. But I do have a question when we get close to the end. So if one of you could let me know when we're close to the end, I have a question that will close out the show.
Well, we're close to the end because the ability to drive home is getting more and more bleak. So.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Alex is like, listen, guys, we're hitting the 2:30 mark here. Like, I already had to go back home to get something. Like, we were stretching the time here.
All right. So, Pete, who are you voting for?
The only thing I can tell you is I'm voting for the winner. So whoever gets elected, that's the way I win.
So, and I asked that, of course, kidding, but I do have a funny Jamie Slatton story.
So you're mentioning
there's a lot of them.
So I don't know Jamie. I was fortunate enough to go to one dinner with him, and during that perhaps I shouldn't be sharing this, so we'll cut this out if you guys feel that this isn't appropriate. But during that dinner, Jamie said, "I will always vote Democrat because my customers are Democrats." And I thought that's it's such a not putting yourself before the business kind of thing. And I have remembered that, and it was 10 years ago or more that I had that dinner with him. And I thought, that's really a guy that's putting his business above. He never talked about what his beliefs were. It didn't matter what his beliefs were. It's like, this is what's good for my customer. And so that's what I'm doing. So I may have just killed the vibe here.
That's a pretty bold statement. That's a very bold statement.
Actually, Alex, let's fucking cut that part out.
Absolutely not. No. It was powerful. No, it's powerful.
It's a bold statement. It's a bold statement. I will tell you this. So, and you guys probably already know this story, but I'm gonna share it because I think it's relevant. When things were going on with Michael Jordan, they wanted him at some point to push the Democratic Party. And what was his return statement? Well, Republicans buy shoes too. I don't think you can be one side or the other. I think you just need to be knowledgeable about the facts that you're interested in. And it's a two-party system right now, unfortunately. So you just got to pick the candidate that kind of falls in line with most, or most of this or most of that. I don't think anybody is always right. I don't think any side is always right. I think that sometimes there are things that we talk about, and then 10 years from now, the other side is doing the same thing.
Well, I think that we all agree with that, and we are all closer to a middle and have views that are on both sides of this thing. And yet this is the thing. And it feels like wasting a vote to go with somebody who sort of encapsulates all of those different views, because you're not one side or the other.
Well, I can tell you now, I don't know how we got to a two-party system, but I think that eventually that will be the death of us. If we don't figure out a way to, there is more than just black and white. And I don't mean just, I don't mean that to be facetious. There's more than just red and blue. You can't, there should be somebody who can say, I have this belief and I have that belief, and it stretches across both aisles. If somebody says, hey, you know what, I want somebody to have gun rights, but I also want somebody to have reproductive rights, that doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that they see it differently. And
we need shades of purple.
Yeah, we need a different. Yeah. We really do. We need somebody who can, be what they can. And you know what? It's unfortunate that, our politics have gotten kind of the way they are, where it's so divisive. I remember, 20 years ago, you can say whatever, political party you're associated with, and it was just a normal thing. Now it's like so divisive, like, oh my God, that person is this. I can't talk to them about my values because somehow they might shun me or I get canceled. I wish it wasn't like that. I think we should be more open. I think there should be more candidacies. I think there should be more people out there. And, I always believe that the more choices you have, the better it is. So it sucks that there's no more bad cocks and there's no more cons. But, those are the repercussions.
We got to isolate that quote. It sucks that there's no more bad cocks and there's no more cons.
But it is what it is, right?
So
we just got to deal with it. We just got to deal with it.
I told Larkin we should buy all the franchisees or get them all on board. We'll start a new company called Good Cock.
You're never going to be invited on the RTO show.
I actually thought that that would happen. I actually thought that by the time we had this podcast, like right now, that there would have been a group of them banding together to say we're not going to let it go under. I was sure that would have happened already.
Yeah,
I don't know it.
There's things happening. There are things happening that I can't exactly speak to, but there are things happening, and there's things on the corporate side too. There's some plays that are working. Nobody really knows where it's going to land. So,
well, I will say, if anybody from Badcock is watching this and you want to share the news, you can give me a call. I'm gonna go for it. I'll talk.
The RTO show is the place for you.
We can talk about it all day. I mean, I know you guys do the same thing, and I would love to be a part of that. If you guys ever do get into that conversation, man, I'd like to be in the part of that circle because I just love to see where it lands. I mean, it's so important to the rest of us to find out, if it's a sinking ship, is it really a sinking ship? Can that be saved? Because I want to believe that it can be. I mean, it can 100+ years to say somebody else bought it and then ruin that. Like, God, that's just that sucks. I don't want to see that, and they have competition, but I don't want to see them go anywhere.
It's more than that. So you're right, 120 years, multiple generations, but I've done a lot of, corporate events for various customers of similar size, and, you managers meetings and franchise shows and all those things. And I can say I've never seen an operation that is run as well as theirs, and that doesn't.
You're talking about Badcock.
I'm talking about Badcock.
Yeah,
and I've never been to one of those events and not shed a tear. And it's not the way it's run; it's the like family of it all. It's like if you're a franchisee,
If you're a franchisee, you're not a franchisee. You are part of the family, and they treat you like that. And all of their employees, like it is the most like authentic and vulnerable and just like we're all in this together organization I've ever been a part of. And it's incredible what they built. And yeah, it is really sad from that aspect. Super thrilled that they cashed out when they did, because I want them to do well, and it sucks that we're left holding the bag, but that's not because of them. But incredible what they built. One of a kind.
I wish them the
'Cause I've
best.
done hundreds of them. I've done them all, and those fucking people know what they were doing.
No, I wish them the best. I hope I really and truly, honestly, I don't want the competition, but I don't want to see them go. They've been around a long time. They're
Yeah.
a staple around here. They're a staple in Florida,
Yeah.
and the amount of people that they service, it's worth to see them stick around for a little. Cons, I really care less, but
Yeah.
like, cons is cons. But Badcock has always been around. I mean, it's something that I grew up with. I've used them before in my life, in years past, and they were always good to me. So,
Yeah.
I wish them the best. I really do.
Yeah,
That's
there was a time when my dad was general manager of some furniture stores in Tampa, and they needed something, and they called Badcock and said, like a customer had bought something, whatever it was, and they said, the rep told us that you have this in stock and we need it, and they're a competitor, essentially, and they said, yeah, come on over, you can have whatever you want, get it, come over, have a tour, like we walk around, have lunch together. And they were so genuine and such great people. But that's not who we're talking about today. All of those people have cashed out and moved on to other things. And so, not to minimize what this cons thing is, but just to highlight what the Badcock people were, what they were like, and they would do that for a competitor, and they would be so gracious, and they would help out people. It's a great lesson.
Yeah.
I love it.
Cool.
I love it.
Very cool.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, man. That's the adventures I'm talking about. I mean, if you get to sit here and talk about it, it was worthwhile living through.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about it,
Yeah. Let's talk about those Rent King guys.
I'm going to skip that one.
I'm going to skip too. I love them. They're great.
I love Larry. Like, Larry and I had the opportunity to go on a vacation together because of mutual friends, and he's a great dude, and I really love hanging out with him.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So yeah.
More power.
All right, guys. Well, this is fucking enough already. I'm sick of
looking at you. We'll call it a night.
All right,
finished this whole bottle of
Cheers.
Peer pressure.
Cheers.
Cheers. Raise it up.
Cheers.
I'm the only one with anything left.
Yeah, I don't have nothing. I'm at the end.
All right, guys. Well, it has been such a pleasure to have you on, man. And we're looking forward to returning the favor, and learned a lot, laughed a lot.
Us being a guest a favor, but anything else we can do to help.
Yeah, that's fact.
But just so you guys know, if you guys are on the podcast, it is very directional. So I'm gonna ask you a whole lot of questions about the furniture industry.
Not a problem.
And, absolutely.
things that I probably wouldn't know or get to know in the position that I'm in, because I like finding out new things, man. And I'm gonna pick your brains as much as I can.
And we won't drink or swear.
And you guys are welcome to enjoy it any way you can, as long as the regular drinks. Well, I guess we're empty now, but
yeah, you're gonna have to give us the bumpers.
Yeah, as long as they stay within these lines, I'm good. But yeah, man, if I really appreciate having me on, and anytime we'll get together soon and make it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good to see you, Pete.
Thank you guys. I appreciate
your time. And send our thanks to your bride.
I will.
We
I
do
will.
appreciate that she loaned you to us for this amount of
She's
time.
probably wondering, like, where is he right now? What's going on? He's been in there for a long time. Is he okay?
Is he gonna play the piano?
Yeah.
Number 2, baby. Number 2. Number 2, baby. All right, guys.
All
Have
right,
a great
guys.
one.
See y'all.
All right, talk to you later.
Well, that was nice because we were able to pick the best sellers and things like that. What you found was,
Bitch, I can see you falling asleep while I'm telling my
I'm
story.
not falling asleep, but just try it.